Hi, I'm Adam. I guess you could say I'm the first one, the first person to ever be. But the truth is, I wasn't always here. At first, there was only stillness, no sky, no trees, no ground beneath my feet, not even sound, just a deep, quiet nothing. But I wasn't afraid. I didn't even know what fear was. I wasn't asleep. I wasn't awake. I was just waiting, though I didn't know for what. Then, one day, or maybe it wasn't a day at all, I heard something. A voice. Not like anything you've ever heard. It didn't come from a mouth or echo from a mountain. It came from everywhere, and yet somehow it felt like it was speaking right into me. It was gentle. It was strong. It was full of something I didn't yet have a word for. But now I know it was love. When that voice spoke, things began to happen. The story didn't start with me. It started with a word, and that word made everything. From darkness to everything. At first, there was only stillness. I couldn't see, I couldn't hear, but I was there, somewhere, somehow. I didn't have a body yet, no hands to touch, no eyes to blink. I didn't even know what those things were, but I could feel something waiting, a kind of quiet excitement, like the whole world was holding its breath. And then I heard him again, that voice, the same one I heard before time began. He spoke gently, but when he did, things happened, big things. Day one. He said, "Let there be light," and suddenly there it was. Not a light like fire or stars, but a beginning kind of light. Soft, wide, endless. It poured into the dark like a river. I didn't have eyes, but I felt it rush over me, like a warm wind with color in it, and I felt him smile. That was the first time I understood the word good, because everything felt right, even though I didn't know what everything meant yet. Then he made night, and I met silence again, but this silence was different. It was full of promise. Day two. The next time he spoke, I felt the sky stretch open above me. It was like he peeled back the top of the world and made a space between water below and something high above. I couldn't see it, but I could feel air moving, not like a storm, like a breath. And in that space between, the sky, it wrapped around me, soft and blue and wide, and again I felt that smile. I still didn't know what I was, but I knew I was wanted. Day three. The third day was different. I felt movement, rising, shifting, cracking. Something under me pushed upward, dry ground, and the water pulled back like it had been given a place to stay. Then, green, all around me. I didn't see it yet, but I could smell it, fresh and sweet, like the first breath of spring. I felt trees stretch tall, grasses dance, vines curl and bloom, colors I had no names for, textures I couldn't touch yet, but I knew they were good. I could hear flowers opening like tiny whispers. Everything was growing, everything was new, everything was alive. Day four, and then light again, but this time it had shape. He placed one bright light in the sky to watch over the day, and a softer one to keep the night gentle. The sun came first, warm, golden, happy. I imagined it smiling, not as big as his smile, but still good. Then the moon, quiet and kind, and around them, stars. Thousands, millions, like tiny notes in a giant lullaby. They didn't speak, but somehow I felt like they were glad I was coming. Day five. The world was no longer silent. Wings! I felt them before I heard them. Feathers brushing the sky, dancing in sunlight. They dipped and soared and sang. Birds filled the air like music, some fast, some slow, each one made with care. Then came the sea, alive with motion, fins, tails, bubbles, so many shapes. The water laughed. That's what it sounded like. Joy, splashing and swimming and spinning. The whole world was filling with life, but still it felt like something was missing. Day 6. I could sense the ground shaking, but not in fear, in excitement. He was making something else now. Big things, small things, things that walked, ran, leapt, snorted, purred. I felt paws press into soft dirt, hooves clicking on rock, fur warming in the sunlight, eyes blinking open. The earth was alive. It was like a song being finished, but not quite, because he wasn't done. And I still hadn't opened my eyes, but I could feel it now. Something close, a breath, a heartbeat, something shaped like a promise. I didn't know what I was, but I was almost here. And then everything got quiet, like the world was waiting for one more thing. When I became me, I don't know how long I waited. Maybe it was only a moment. Maybe it was forever. But then something changed. The air around me slowed, the world hushed. Like every leaf, every cloud, every star was holding its breath, and so was I, even though I hadn't taken one yet. Then I felt something warm, not light this time, but hands. Big, gentle hands. Stronger than the earth, but softer than anything I'd ever imagined. They weren't made of dirt, but somehow they were shaping it, me. I could feel him forming me. Every part of me was carefully made. My arms, my legs, my chest, my skin, and my heart. I felt it last, just before it beat for the very first time. I still hadn't moved, but I was full of something new. Expectation. I was ready. Then he leaned in. Close. Closer than the sky, closer than the ground, and he breathed. That breath, it wasn't just air, it was life. Pure, bright, endless life. It filled my lungs, lungs I didn't know I had, and suddenly, I wasn't waiting anymore. I was. I gasped. I blinked. I opened my eyes. And the world? Oh, the world. It was more beautiful than anything I could have dreamed. I saw light, not just light, but colors. Blue above me, green below. I turned my head. There were trees, tall and swaying, with leaves like tiny hands waving hello. The grass beneath me was cool and soft, like 1,000 tiny pillows. The sky stretched forever. The clouds floated like they had nowhere to be. And the wind danced around me, playful and kind. I sat up slowly. My arms felt strong. My fingers wiggled like they were excited to meet the world. My legs were long. They folded beneath me, unsure but steady. I touched the ground. It was real, warm in places, rough in others. I could smell the dirt, fresh and alive. And when I looked up, I saw him. He didn't say anything. He just looked at me, like I was the most wonderful thing he'd ever made. And in that moment, I felt no fear, only peace, and something more, belonging. I didn't know the word yet, but I felt it deep inside me. I belonged here, to this world, to him. Then I heard sound. Birds chirping sweet melodies from high above, the rustle of trees, the rush of a nearby river. Everything had its own voice, its own joy, and now, so did I. I took another breath. This time, it was mine. I looked at my hands again. They were real. I stood up, slowly, carefully. The world felt big beneath my feet. But it didn't feel scary. It felt like home. He looked at me again. not like a king looks at a servant, more like a father watching his child take their very first step. And in his eyes I saw love, not the small kind that comes and goes, but the kind that makes stars burn and flowers bloom and hearts beat. I didn't know what to say, so I didn't speak. I just stood there in the garden breeze, smiling like the sky. And though I'd just been born, I felt like I had always been waiting for this moment, this breath, this life, this light. The world was ready, and so was I. Exploring a world made just for me. The air felt new. Every breath tasted like something that had never existed before, fresh, sweet, full of life. I stood still for a while, just breathing, feeling the wind run past my arms like a curious friend. The ground under my feet was soft and warm, like the earth itself had been waiting for me to arrive. Then he reached out his hand. I didn't think. I just placed mine in his. It felt right, like my hand had been shaped just to fit his. He didn't speak, but somehow I knew what he wanted. He was inviting me to walk, to see, to know. And so we walked. At first, I moved slowly, unsure. My legs were strong, but unfamiliar. My feet curled slightly with each step, learning the feel of the ground. Dirt, roots, soft moss. Each one was different, but all of them welcomed me. They knew I belonged here. I could feel it. We passed tall trees, their branches stretched wide like open arms. Leaves rustled gently above us, whispering greetings I didn't yet understand. One leaf floated down and landed on my shoulder. I held it in my hand. So small, so simple, yet perfect. A tiny masterpiece. Birds fluttered through the sky, painting invisible paths with their wings. One flew so low I felt the air move as it passed. It sang a note as it went by, just one, but it stayed in my heart. Another bird landed nearby, tilted its head, and blinked at me. I blinked back. We stared at each other, and I smiled. There were flowers, too, bright ones, soft ones, shy ones hiding behind tall grass. Some had colors I didn't have words for. Others had scents that wrapped around my senses like gentle laughter. I reached out to touch one, and its petals curled under my fingers, ticklish and playful. And then, water. I heard it before I saw it, a quiet sound like the sky sighing. We stepped through a patch of golden grass, and there it was, a stream, winding like a silver ribbon through the earth. It sparkled in the sunlight, alive and joyful. I crouched beside it. My reflection stared back at me, curious, wide-eyed, not quite used to existing yet. I dipped my fingers into the water. It was cool, not cold, clean, clear. I tasted it. It made me feel even more awake, more real. I looked up at him. He was watching me, not like someone testing a creation, but like a friend sharing a secret. The world was quiet, but not empty. Everything had a voice, if I listened closely enough. The breeze hummed a slow song. The trees creaked with age and wisdom. The flowers giggled when touched by bees. The animals stirred in the distance. Nothing loud, just signs of life beginning to stretch and move. We walked further, and I saw them, creatures of every kind. Some were big, with heavy steps and thick tails that swayed behind them. Others were small and quick, darting between trees like streaks of color. One had long ears and curious eyes. It sniffed the air near me and then hopped away. Another one, round and woolly, nuzzled against my leg. I laughed. It made a small sound in return, like a soft puff of wind. I crouched and touched its back. It leaned into me. I didn't have a name for it, but I loved it. He showed me all of them, one by one. And I looked, listened, touched, smiled. I didn't speak, but inside I felt something big and bright. Gratitude, maybe, or joy. At one point, I stopped walking. I turned in a slow circle, taking in the trees, the hills, the sun hanging high above me like a glowing promise. Everything was alive, and everything was good. I ran, not because he told me to, but because I couldn't help it. My feet moved faster and faster across the ground. The wind pushed against my face. My arms spread wide. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't need to know. I was free. When I stopped, I was breathless. Not tired, just full. Full of air, of color, of sound. I fell back onto the grass, and it caught me like a bed made just for me. The clouds drifted overhead, slow and soft. One of them looked like a lion, another like a mountain. He sat beside me, silent. And I was silent too. I didn't need words. Everything I wanted to say was already around me, growing, flying, flowing. This place wasn't just where I lived. It was a part of me. It was made for me. And somehow I knew, deep in my bones, that he would walk with me again. Tomorrow. My first sunset. My first dream. The sky was changing. I didn't know the word for it, but I felt it. The light began to soften. The edges of the world grew warm and golden, like everything had been dipped in honey. Shadows stretched long across the grass. Trees swayed slower, quieter, as if they too were getting ready to sleep. The sun, which had shone above me all day like a giant joyful eye, now began to sink, slowly, gently. Not like it was falling, but like it was bowing, a peaceful goodbye. The light didn't leave all at once. It melted into the horizon, turning the sky into a painting, deep orange, soft purple, glowing pink. I stood at the top of a hill and watched. The whole garden turned calm. The flowers closed their petals, the birds tucked their heads beneath their wings. Even the stream, which had chattered and laughed all afternoon, now whispered. Everything was slowing down. So was I. I sat down in the grass. My body was still new, but it already understood what rest meant. I stretched out my arms, leaned back, and looked up. And there they were, stars, tiny lights. Hundreds of them. No, thousands. I didn't know how far away they were, or what they were made of. I only knew that they were beautiful. They blinked quietly like sleepy eyes. Some twinkled, some simply glowed. It felt like they were watching over me. And then the moon appeared, round, soft, gentle. It didn't speak, but I felt comfort in its light. Not like the sun, loud and warm. This was a quiet kind of light, a light made for rest. The night animals began to stir. I heard the hoot of an owl far off, the rustle of something moving slowly through the trees. But I wasn't afraid. Nothing in this place was meant to hurt me. The night wasn't dark, it was deep, peaceful, like being wrapped in a warm blanket. I lay down. The grass beneath me felt like a bed made by someone who loved me. The stars above seemed to sing, though they made no sound. I closed my eyes, and then, for the first time, I dreamed. I dreamed of light dancing across the water. I dreamed of lions running beside deer, not chasing, just running. I dreamed of trees that whispered stories. I dreamed of a hand, his hand, reaching down and lifting me up into the sky so I could see the world from above. I smiled in my sleep. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but I knew this: I was safe. I was loved. I am Adam. God created the world, the light, the sky, the seas, and all living things. Then he made me. I opened my eyes to a garden full of life and beauty. For a while, I thought that was the whole story. I walked among animals and trees. I named them all. I talked to God and listened to his voice in the wind. Everything was perfect. And yet, there was a quiet space inside me, a space I couldn't explain. It felt like something was missing. God noticed this before I did. One day he said, "It is not good for man to be alone." I didn't understand fully what he meant, but I trusted him. He told me to rest. I lay down under the trees and closed my eyes. The garden grew still and quiet, and in that deep silence, God was still working, creating something new. When I woke up, I was not alone. Beside me was someone I had never met, but somehow already knew. She was different from me, but part of me. She was life's new breath. And so the story continued. When I first saw her, I forgot how to breathe. One moment I was waking up from a deep warm sleep, and the next, I saw her. She was like light wrapped in skin. She looked at me, and it felt like the whole world paused for a second, just so I could say, "Hello." We didn't speak at first. We just smiled. Somehow, she knew me, like we had always been meant to walk side by side. I didn't have to be alone anymore. I had someone, and she was perfect. We spent our days exploring the garden. It was huge, bigger than anything I could imagine. Trees taller than I could reach, rivers that sang when they moved. Every flower seemed to lean toward her as she passed, like they knew who she was. We ran barefoot on soft moss, played with lion cubs and foxes, and sometimes just laid under the trees, looking up at the sky. I'd turn my head to look at her and think, how could something so wonderful come from me? Every evening when the golden light turned soft and low, we'd hear him walking. Not loud, just the sound of peace, like the breeze through the leaves, and then his voice would come, warm, gentle. He'd ask how our day was, what we'd seen, what we'd learned. We told him everything. There were no secrets, only joy. One day, he walked with us to the middle of the garden. There was a tree there, different from the others. It looked older, wiser. Its fruit glowed in the sun, smooth and beautiful. But I could feel it. This tree was special. He stopped in front of it and said, "You can eat from any tree here. All of them are for you, except this one." I nodded. So did she. "If you eat from this tree," he said, voice still calm, "you'll surely die." Die. That was a word I hadn't heard before. It didn't sound good, but I didn't ask. I trusted him. Why wouldn't I? Everything around us was his gift, including her. She squeezed my hand after he left. "We'll stay away from it," she said. And we did, for a while. Most days were just happiness. We didn't worry. We didn't get tired. We didn't even think about time. The garden felt like forever. I loved the way she'd talk to the birds, as if they could understand her. Maybe they did. She had a way of smiling that made everything around her come alive. I started planting things just so I could see her eyes light up when a flower bloomed. We laughed a lot. I taught her the names I'd given the animals. She came up with better ones, to be honest. We chased butterflies, splashed in the river, and when the stars came out, we'd lie on the grass and count them until we fell asleep. Sometimes I'd catch her looking at the tree again. Not close to it, just wondering. "I'm not going near it," she said once. It looks so different. Don't you wonder why?" "Not really," I said. He said no. "That's enough for me." She nodded, but I saw it in her eyes, that tiny question, just floating there. Still, most days were perfect. I didn't think much about the tree or about rules. I thought about her. I thought about how lucky I was. I even told him that once. "Thank you," I said. "She makes everything better." He smiled. I think he already knew. Sometimes I wonder if that was the best part, the before, when everything was still simple, when the only thing I knew was joy. I didn't know how heavy hearts could feel, not yet, but for that time, for those mornings full of bird song and those nights under the stars, I was the happiest man to ever walk the earth. I don't remember the exact day it changed. It didn't come like a storm. No loud crash, no warning in the sky. It came quietly, like a whisper in the leaves. At first, I noticed she wasn't laughing as much. She still smiled, still held my hand, but sometimes her eyes would drift to that tree, the one we weren't supposed to touch, the one that stood in the middle of everything, tall and still and silent. I didn't ask her at first. I just watched. One morning, I couldn't find her. Usually she was near the river or picking berries or feeding the baby animals she liked best. But that day she was gone. I walked through the garden calling her name. "Where are you?" Then I saw her, standing near the tree, not too close, but closer than before. She turned quickly when she heard me. Her face looked different. Not afraid, just serious, like she'd been thinking about something big, something too big for words. "There was a voice," she said softly. "A voice?" I asked. She nodded. "A creature, a serpent. It spoke to me." My heart thudded, not from fear, but from something else, a strange feeling I didn't have a name for. "What did it say?" She looked down at her hands. "It asked why we weren't allowed to eat from this tree." I didn't answer. I just listened. She went on. "I told it what he said, that we'd die if we ate it. But then it laughed. It said we wouldn't die. It said he just didn't want us to be like him, that eating it would open our eyes." My chest felt tight. I couldn't explain it. just a heaviness in my ribs. "That's not true," I said quietly. "He wouldn't lie to us." She looked up. "What if it's not a lie? What if we've only been living half a life? What if there's more to know, more to feel?" I stepped closer to her. "We have everything we need. But what if we could have more?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. I was too busy staring at that fruit. It really was beautiful, smooth, bright. It looked like it held the sun inside it. For the first time, I noticed how sweet it smelled, almost like it was calling to me. She picked one. I didn't stop her. I didn't say a word. She held it for a moment. Then she took a bite. Nothing happened. The world didn't crack open. The sky didn't fall. She turned to me and held it out. "Try it," she whispered. I looked at the fruit, then at her. She didn't look afraid. She looked alive, lit from inside. Her eyes were sharp, focused. There was something new in her face I couldn't name. Curiosity, power, hunger. I reached out and took it. My fingers trembled. I bit into it. At first nothing, then everything. It was like a flood. My mind opened up too fast, too wide. Thoughts I'd never had rushed in. Questions, shame, awareness. I looked at her, and for the first time I noticed she was naked. I was too, but now it meant something. We looked away from each other. I had never felt shame before. I didn't even know the word, but suddenly I wanted to hide. Not just my body, but my thoughts, my face, all of me. We scrambled to find leaves, big ones. We tied them together with vines and covered ourselves. It was messy, clumsy. It didn't feel right, but it was better than being seen. I kept looking at the tree. It didn't feel magical anymore. It felt heavy, like the center of a mistake we couldn't undo. She touched my arm. Did we do something wrong? I couldn't answer. Somewhere far off, I heard the wind shift, the sound of footsteps on soft ground, slow, steady, familiar. He was coming, and for the first time, I was afraid. We didn't run far. There was nowhere to go. The garden had always been home. Every tree, every rock, every breeze, we knew them all. But that day, they felt different. The colors dimmed, the air felt heavy, and we felt exposed. We crouched behind some thick trees, hearts racing. We didn't talk. We just breathed, trying to stay quiet. I pressed my back against the trunk, listening. Then I heard him. Not angry, not shouting, just walking, like always. The sound of his steps brushing against the grass, a sound I used to love. Then came his voice. "Adam, where are you?" I froze. He had never asked that before. He always knew where we were, but now his voice felt distant, like he was asking not just where I was standing, but where I had gone, where my heart had gone. I swallowed hard. My throat was dry. "I heard you in the garden," I called out, and I was afraid, because I was naked, so I hid. The silence that followed felt louder than anything I'd ever heard. Then he said, "Who told you that you were naked? Did you eat from the tree I told you not to?" My mouth opened, but no words came. I looked at her, she looked at me, and then I said, "The woman you gave me, she gave me the fruit, so I ate it." Even as the words left my mouth, I hated how they sounded, like I was pushing blame, handing over the weight of my own choice. He turned to her. She said, "The serpent tricked me, and I ate." We stood there, silent. The garden seemed to hold its breath. Then his voice changed, still calm, but filled with something deeper: sorrow, grief. He spoke to the serpent first. His words were sharp, final. He said it would crawl on its belly forever, and that there would be a war between it and us, between its kind and ours, a wound that would stretch through time. Then he turned to her. His voice was soft, but firm. He told her that life would still go on, but it wouldn't be easy. Pain would come, in childbirth, in longing, in love. Then he looked at me. He said the ground would no longer give freely. I'd have to work, sweat, fight for every bit of food. Thorns and thistles would grow alongside the wheat. He said I came from dust, and one day I'd return to it. My knees buckled. I didn't cry, not yet, not then, but my chest ached. I felt something break inside me, something I couldn't name. Still, he didn't leave us naked. He made clothes for us, real ones, not the leaves we had tied up in fear, but coverings sewn from something stronger. They were warm, rougher than the garden's touch, but they fit. He dressed us, himself, and then he led us to the edge of the garden. I don't remember the exact path. My feet moved, but my mind was somewhere else. I didn't want to look back. I couldn't. At the gate, he stopped. He didn't shout. He didn't scold. He just said, "You can't stay here." And I knew he was right. We had broken something. Not just a rule, but a kind of trust. We had seen the world one way, and now we saw it differently. The light beyond the garden looked colder, harder, but it was waiting. He placed angels there, at the gate, with swords of fire, not to punish us, to protect the way back, a way we couldn't walk anymore. We stepped out. The grass outside was rougher. The air held a bite. My hand found hers. She squeezed it. Neither of us said anything. But in that silence, I still heard his voice, not behind us, not far away, somehow still near. The first night outside the garden was cold, not just in the air, but inside me. We had never felt cold before, never known what it meant to shiver. I held her close, wrapping my arms around her, and we curled beneath a tree, too tired to speak, too lost to cry. The stars above were the same, but everything else had changed. In the garden, we never worried. Food was always there, the ground was soft, the world felt kind. Out here, everything was harder. The ground fought me. Stones bruised my feet. Plants had thorns. Rain fell sharp, not gentle like it used to. My hands bled the first time I tried to dig the earth, but I kept digging. We learned quickly. We had to. I built tools from rock and wood. She learned which roots were safe to eat. We found water. We found ways to survive. It was never easy. There were days when the sky looked angry and nights when we couldn't sleep. Hunger visited us often, but somehow we kept going. And still, he was with us. Not like before, not walking beside us in the cool of the day, not with words in the wind, but in other ways. In the sunrise that broke through clouds after a storm, in the way seeds still knew how to grow, in the quiet strength that came when I felt like giving up. One day, she looked at me with wide eyes and said, I think there's life inside me. I stared at her. What do you mean? She smiled, one hand over her belly. Something's growing. Not a tree, not food, something different. Something like us. And she was right. Weeks passed, her body changed. She grew slower, heavier, and one night, under a sky full of stars, she cried out in pain. It was the first time I heard her scream like that. I didn't know what to do. I held her hand. I prayed without words. And then I heard a cry. Not hers. A new one. A voice we had never heard before. She looked down, tears in her eyes, and there he was, tiny, red-faced, wrinkled and loud. Our son. We named him Cain. He was so small, so helpless, and yet he held the whole world in him. A second chance, a new beginning. I looked at her, and for the first time in what felt like forever, she smiled the way she used to in the garden. Later, we had another son, Abel, quieter, gentler. They played together. They ran through the grass, threw stones into the river, laughed in the sunlight. It wasn't Eden, but it was life, and it was good. Some nights, when the fire is low and the stars are bright, I lie awake thinking about what we lost. The trees, the river, his voice, so close you could almost touch it. But I also think about what we still have. Each other, our children, the chance to begin again. I tell them stories about the garden, about how the world once was, not to make them sad, but to help them remember that beauty is still possible, that even when we make mistakes, He doesn't leave us. Sometimes Abel asks, "Do you think we'll ever go back?" And I say, not the way it was, but maybe one day someone will open the way again. He nods, not fully understanding, but I believe it. Deep down, beneath the dust and the thorns, I still hear his promise, not in words, but in the way the wind moves, the rain falls, the stars shine. We were sent out of the garden, but we were never sent away from his heart. And though the world is broken, love still grows here, like seeds in hard soil, like light after night, like a whisper that never truly fades.
I am Cain. My parents were Adam and Eve. They used to talk about it at night. When the fire had died down and the stars filled the sky, I'd hear them whisper about a garden they once knew, Eden. They spoke of it like a dream they had woken from too soon, a place where trees grew fruit without asking, where animals didn't bite, where there was no need to hide. But to me, it was just a story. I never saw it, never touched its grass or smelled its air. I was born after the gates closed, born after the sword. Sometimes I'd catch a look in Father's eyes when he stared at the horizon, like he thought he could still see it out there. He'd fall quiet, and then he'd sigh, like something heavy was always sitting in his chest. Mother, too, she would hum to herself, songs that didn't have words. Maybe they were old Eden songs. I don't know. They never taught them to us. Our home wasn't a garden. It was a rough land, dry some years, muddy in others. The soil was hard, and the wind could be cruel, but we made it work. Father taught me how to press seeds into the dirt, how to wait, how to hope. He'd say, "This land might not be Eden, but it still listens if you're patient." I tried to be patient, but patience didn't come easy to me. Mother cared for the animals, the house, and us. She told us stories, ones about beginnings, about light and water and stars. She made the world sound soft again. At night, when the wind blew cold through the cracks in our walls, she'd pull us close and speak in a low voice. I liked those nights. They made the world feel smaller, like nothing could reach us. And then there was Abel, my brother. We grew up side by side, ate the same bread, heard the same stories, but we were never the same. Abel was quiet, not just with his voice, but in his way of being. He moved like the world didn't rush him. He could sit for hours watching the sheep, his hand resting on a rock or in the grass, like he had all the time in the world. And the sheep listened to him, like they knew he meant no harm. Me, I liked movement, noise, digging into the ground with my hands, sweat on my face, dirt under my nails. I liked the feel of things happening, plants growing, storms coming, the sound of wind in tall grass. I never understood how Abel could just sit so still. Father said we were both important, me, the grower of food, and Abel, the keeper of the flock. But sometimes I felt like he looked at Abel just a little longer. Or maybe that was just my own shadow talking. I don't know. We didn't fight, not at first. We just didn't talk much either. Not deeply. Not about things that mattered. Still, we worked side by side. I'd trade grain for wool. He'd bring me milk when my hands were too full. It was a rhythm, simple and wordless. Days came and went. The sun rose, the sun fell, and life went on. But there was always something else too, something bigger than us. Father talked about him, the one who made the garden, the one who spoke to the light and named the stars. Sometimes he'd pray out loud, especially on quiet nights or when crops failed. He never raised his voice. It was more like a conversation than a ritual, like he was speaking to someone just out of reach. I never saw him, never heard him, not clearly, not like Father once had. But I felt things. Sometimes the sky would go still in a strange way, or the trees would lean just so. It made the hairs on my arms rise. Abel said those moments were when the Lord passed by. I wasn't so sure, but I didn't say that aloud. There were days when I thought maybe he was angry, not at us, but at the world, like the ground itself was cursed, like it didn't want to give us what we asked for. Thorns, weeds, droughts. Father said it hadn't always been like that. I believed him. He didn't lie, but that didn't make it easier. We grew older, stronger. We each had our place, me with the soil, Abel with the sheep. We didn't choose it. It just happened, like we were walking paths that were drawn long before we were born. Sometimes I wished I could see Eden, just once. Not to live there, not even to stay, just to know. To see what they lost, what I never had. Maybe then I'd understand why things were the way they were, why I felt this tightness in my chest when the harvest failed, why Abel's eyes stayed calm, even when storms came. But Eden was closed, the gate sealed, the sword still burned, and we had a life to live, far from the garden, That was our beginning. There was a time when Abel and I did everything together. We'd wake up to the same sunrise, run to the same chores, eat from the same pot. But as we grew older, things started to shift. Not in some loud or obvious way, more like the quiet pulling of threads. We began doing our own work, walking our own paths. He spent more and more time out in the hills, watching over his sheeps. He liked the silence out there, said it helped him think. I didn't understand that. To me, silence wasn't peaceful, it was heavy. When I worked the fields, I wanted the sound of wind, birds, tools hitting soil. I wanted motion, not stillness. I needed to feel things changing. I guess we just found peace in different places. I'd see him sometimes in the distance, standing still as a tree with his staff in hand, just staring at the horizon. Sometimes the sheep circled around him like he was one of them. He always looked calm, steady, like he belonged there. And maybe that's when I first started to feel it, that space between us. We weren't angry with each other. There were no fights, but there were fewer words, fewer shared glances, less laughter, like we were living next to each other, not with each other. At home, it was even more obvious. When Abel spoke, people listened. Father would nod, slow and thoughtful. Mother would smile, that soft kind of smile that says, I trust you. And me, I tried. I spoke. I worked. I came home with dirt on my hands and sweat on my back. But it never felt quite enough. If something went wrong with the crops, it was maybe the soil wasn't blessed. But if one of Abel's lambs went missing, they said, even the good shepherd suffers sometimes. He was always the good one, the kind one, the thoughtful one, the one who listened before speaking. And I had questions. I got frustrated. I didn't always keep my voice soft. I didn't always know what to say. It wasn't that I hated him. I didn't. He was my brother, but the weight of being near him, of being compared to him, sometimes it was too much. I started wondering things I shouldn't, wondering if something in me was broken, if I was born wrong. I'd kneel in my fields and ask the ground to give me a sign, any sign that I mattered, that I was seen, that I was enough. The plants still grew, but slowly. The rain came, but late. Nothing ever bloomed easily for me, and each time something failed, I could hear the unspoken words in the way Father looked away or Mother sighed too long. They never said it, but I knew what they thought. Why can't you be more like your brother? I hated that thought. I hated that it stayed with me even when I tried to shake it off. No matter how much I worked, how much I gave, I still felt like I was standing in someone else's shadow. And the worst part, he didn't even mean to cast it. Then came that one morning. The air was crisp, the sun not yet high. I had just returned from checking the irrigation lines I'd dug along the western slope. My hands were blistered, and I smelled like wet clay. Abel was already back from the pasture, sitting by the fire, sharpening one of his small knives. He looked up and smiled. You've been working hard, he said. Of course I have, I muttered, brushing dirt from my arms. Someone has to make sure we eat. He nodded slowly. I know. I'm just saying. It's good that you care so much. I paused. Something about his tone. It wasn't sharp, but it felt tilted, like he was standing on higher ground. And then he added, maybe if you slowed down a bit, listened more, you'd hear him. I turned. What did you just say? Abel didn't flinch. I'm just saying, sometimes I hear his voice best when I'm still. Maybe you're trying too hard. Maybe you're not leaving space for him to speak. His words hit like cold water, not because they were cruel, but because they came from him, my brother, my little brother, telling me how to get closer to God, telling me how to fix myself, as if he knew me better than I knew myself. I clenched my jaw and stared at the fire. I didn't want to start something, not then, but I felt something in me curl inward. A part of me shut the door. He meant well. I think he always did. But well-meaning words can still cut deep, especially when they come wrapped in peace and righteousness, especially when they remind you of everything you're not. We didn't talk much after that, not in a real way. I buried myself in work, dug deeper, planted wider, carried heavier loads. Maybe I thought that if I just did more, gave more, grew more, someone would notice. Someone would say, "You too, Cain, you too are favored." But that day never came. And slowly, quietly, the space between me and my brother became more than just space. It became a silence, a heavy, aching silence that followed me even when I walked alone. We both wanted to please him. That much I know for sure. No one told us to bring an offering, not exactly, but we felt it like a pull inside. Maybe it came from Father's stories, or from the way the wind moved through the trees when the air got still. It wasn't a command, it was a feeling, a need, a hope. So we brought what we had, what we were. I brought fruit from the land, not just anything. I chose the best I could find, the golden grains, the ripest figs, the full baskets of what I'd grown with my hands and my sweat. They were clean, fresh, laid out in neat piles. I even arranged the leaves around them. I wanted it to look beautiful, worthy. Abel brought a lamb, a small one, soft and white, barely weaned. I saw him holding it close before placing it on the altar. He whispered something to it, maybe a prayer, maybe just a goodbye. We stood side by side, quiet, waiting. The air didn't move. Then it did, just a flicker. The scent of smoke curled toward his side, then rose higher. A wind touched the lamb. There was a warmth in the air, not hot, gentle, like someone had smiled. And then, nothing. My side stayed cold. My offering stayed still. No smoke, no warmth, no sign. I waited. I blinked. I stepped closer, just in case I'd missed something. But the silence didn't change. I looked at Abel. He wasn't grinning. He wasn't gloating. He stood with his hands at his sides, eyes lowered, humble, still. But it didn't help. I felt something twist inside me, not a sudden thing. It was slow, like a rope pulling tight around my ribs. Shame, that's what it was at first. Then confusion, then something darker. I wanted to ask why. Why him? Why not me? Was my grain not enough? My figs not sweet enough? Was it the way I stood? The way I thought? Was I already wrong before I even made the offering? I tried to breathe steady, but it came out sharp. He didn't say a word. He didn't have to. That look, the one on his face, it wasn't pride. It was peace. That soft, glowing peace I could never seem to touch. Like he knew something I didn't. Like he was being let into a room I wasn't allowed in. and I hated how much I noticed it. I turned away before he could see my face. I walked fast, past the altar, past the trees, out to the edge of the field where no one could hear me. My chest was tight. My hands were shaking. I wasn't angry, not yet, but I was breaking. I sank to the ground and stared at the dirt. The same dirt I'd worked, the same soil I'd poured my strength into, the same land that gave me food, gave me pride. Now it felt cold, dry, distant. I dug my fingers into it, pulled up clumps of earth, let it crumble through my hands. I wanted it to answer me. I wanted someone to answer me. What did I do wrong? All I had was silence. That night I didn't go home. I stayed in the field long after the sky turned black. The stars came out bright and sharp, but I didn't look at them. I couldn't. I sat on a flat rock by the edge of the crop rows, staring into nothing. My offering still sat on the altar, untouched. It felt like it was mocking me. Thoughts came and went like clouds, fast, shifting, unfinished. Maybe I wasn't enough. Maybe I never would be. Maybe there was something in me that just didn't fit the way things were made. Then other thoughts crept in, quieter but colder. Maybe he just didn't care. No, that wasn't right. He cared about Abel. He noticed Abel, which meant he chose, and I wasn't the one he chose. The thought sat heavy in my chest, pressing down. I stood up, walked in circles, sat down again. My legs ached, my eyes burned. I didn't cry. I couldn't. Something in me had gone stiff, like my heart had turned to stone. I heard something, maybe a bird, maybe the wind, but it made me jump. I wasn't used to feeling afraid, but I was. Not of the dark, not even of God. I was afraid of what was growing in me. It started as a whisper, just a small thought in the back of my mind. He's always the one. He always wins, and you'll never matter like he does. I told myself it was nonsense. I told myself he was my brother. But the whisper didn't stop, and neither did the silence. So I stayed in the field, alone, under the stars, trying to breathe through a storm that hadn't even started yet. I didn't plan anything. That's the first thing I want you to know. I didn't wake up thinking, today is the day. I didn't sharpen a blade. I didn't make a vow. All I wanted was to talk. I'd been thinking about it all night, rolling his words over and over in my head, trying to untangle the knots they made inside me. I thought maybe if I just looked him in the eye, if we could stand face to face, maybe I'd feel less lost. Maybe I'd find some kind of peace. So I found him in the morning. He was walking back from the hills, staff in hand, a calmness in his step, like nothing had changed. I called to him. Come with me, I said. Let's walk through the field. He didn't hesitate, just nodded and followed. That was Abel, always ready to listen. We walked side by side, the wind soft against the grass, the earth still wet from dew. The crops around us were waist-high, quiet and still. A bird called in the distance. For a moment, everything felt almost right. Then I started talking, not yelling, just words, about the offering, about how I didn't understand, about how I tried, about how empty it made me feel. He listened, He really did. His eyes stayed on me, gentle, steady. He didn't interrupt, didn't defend himself, and that made it harder. When I finished, he said quietly, Maybe, maybe it wasn't about the gift, Cain. Maybe it's about the heart. That broke something in me. Not because it was cruel, but because it sounded so simple, like the answer had been there the whole time, and I'd just failed to see it, like I had no excuse. I don't remember what I said back. I don't remember if I said anything at all. I just remember a heat in my chest, a flash behind my eyes, a sound, my own voice maybe, a shape moving in the tall grass, a breath cut short, and then he was on the ground, still. His staff lay a few steps away. One of his hands reached toward it, but didn't move again. His eyes were open, confused, not angry, not even afraid, just surprised. I stood there, frozen. The silence that followed was like nothing I'd ever heard. Not peaceful, not natural, just empty. I dropped whatever was in my hand. I think it was a stone. I stepped back, then forward, then fell to my knees beside him. Abel, I said. He didn't answer. I said it again, softer this time. Abel. But he was gone, gone like a breath leaving the body, gone like a candle when the flame disappears, but the smoke still curls in the air. And I didn't know what I had done. I mean, I knew, but I didn't know. It hadn't sunk in yet. It felt like a dream, a nightmare with no edge. I kept thinking he'd move, that he'd sit up, laugh, forgive me. But the blood on the soil said otherwise. I don't know how long I stayed there. I just remember the wind picking up, the sky dimming a little. My hands were dirty, his blood mixed with the dirt, and I couldn't stop looking at them. Then I heard it, a voice, soft, steady, low, and clear. Where is your brother, Abel? I didn't turn around. I didn't need to. I knew who it was. That voice. It didn't shake the earth. It didn't burn my skin, but it cut deeper than any blade. I swallowed. My mouth was dry. My throat hurt. I don't know, I said. Am I my brother's keeper? I still don't know why I said it. Maybe I thought I could hide. Maybe I thought if I sounded strong, I wouldn't fall apart. Maybe I just didn't want to say the truth out loud. Not then, not yet. But he knew. Of course he knew. The voice came again, still calm, still heavy. Your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. I wanted to run, but my legs wouldn't move. You have done what cannot be undone, he said. The ground that opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood will no longer yield its strength to you. The words fell like stones. You will be a restless wanderer on the earth. I didn't argue. What could I say? That I was sorry? That it wasn't what I meant? That I didn't know how it got this far? None of it would change what I'd done. So I just stood there, the wind cold against my skin, my hands still stained, my brother still silent. And something in me closed. The field around me had once felt like home, a place I knew, a place I belonged. But now it was just a grave, and I was the one who made it so. The ground, It no longer listens to me. I knelt down, dug a little hole, and dropped a seed in, just like I used to. I covered it, watered it, waited. The sun came, the rain too. Days passed, but nothing grew, not even a single green sprout. It was like the earth had gone quiet. Or maybe it remembered what I did. Maybe it was trying to stay clean. I moved on, farther and farther away from where it all happened, from home, from everything I used to know. I don't know how many days I walked. I just kept walking. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't care. People looked at me differently. Some stared. Others looked down and avoided my eyes. A few just ran. I didn't blame them. They must have heard. Somehow they always heard. And yet, none of them hurt me. Not a single one raised a hand against me, even when they looked afraid, even when I knew they hated me. I guess that's because of him. God gave me a mark. He didn't kill me. He didn't let anyone else kill me either. That mark, people think it's a protection. Maybe it is. But to me, it feels more like a reminder. A quiet one I carry on my body, on my face, in every step I take. There are nights when I see Abel, not really, of course, just in my dreams. Sometimes he's still a boy, running through the fields. Other times, he's standing beside the altar, holding that lamb in his arms. He always looks peaceful, like he knows something I don't. Sometimes I dream I didn't say anything. I didn't invite him to the field. I just let it go. And we walked home, side by side like we used to. But then I wake up, and the wind outside is cold, and the fire is small, and I remember where I am. Now I live in places without names. I built a little shelter once. It stood for a few seasons, but I didn't stay. I couldn't. The wind kept bringing me voices, whispers that sounded like home, like regret. So I left again. I've seen mountains and rivers. I've crossed valleys filled with fog and deserts where the air burns your throat. I've met others, travelers, builders, wanderers like me. Some speak to me, some don't. But I never stay long. Sometimes I feel like the world is trying to push me forward, keep me moving, like even the land doesn't want me resting too long in one place. Still, something inside me has changed. The loud, stormy part of me. It's not so loud anymore. I don't yell at the skies. I don't pound the ground with my fists. I just breathe. There are still days I hate myself. There are still days I wish I could go back and pull my younger self away, shake him, tell him to listen, to wait, to forgive. But I can't. What I can do is walk, one step after another. Some days it feels like a punishment. Other days it feels like something more, a kind of quiet redemption. The mark is still there. My guilt is still there. But I'm learning to carry both without letting them crush me. And maybe that's something. I'm still walking. And sometimes, just sometimes, I look up at the sky and think he's still watching. Not with anger, not with pity, just watching. And maybe that's enough for now. I am Noah. When I was a boy, the world felt wide and full of wonder. I remember lying on my back at night, outside our tent, watching the stars. They were so many, like tiny lanterns hanging from the sky. I used to imagine someone up there was watching me. I didn't know who, but I felt it, like someone was listening when I whispered my thoughts into the night. The desert was quiet after sunset. The wind would move softly through the sand, and the fire would crackle beside me. My little brothers would already be asleep, but I liked to stay up a bit longer, just me and the stars. That was my favorite time of day. Everything felt peaceful. I didn't have the words for it back then, but I think that was the first time I felt close to something, bigger than myself. Sometimes I'd make shapes out of the stars, a lion, a river, a hand reaching down. Maybe it was silly, but I felt like the sky was trying to talk to me. I just didn't know how to understand it yet. My grandfather, Methuselah, was the oldest man I ever knew. His beard was long, his back was bent, but his eyes were full of fire. He loved to tell stories, especially right before bedtime. I'd curl up beside him, and he'd begin with that deep, slow voice of his. He told me about a garden, so beautiful it didn't feel real. It was called Eden, he'd say, a place where everything was perfect. No pain, no death, just peace. And God walked with people like you walk with a friend. I used to close my eyes and picture it. Trees heavy with fruit, rivers as clear as glass, lions sleeping beside lambs. I'd imagine myself running through that garden, barefoot, laughing. We were made for that kind of life, Grandpa would whisper. We were meant to live close to God. But the stories always turned sad. He'd tell me how people turned away, how they stopped listening to God, how the garden was closed. Every time I'd ask him, why did they do it? And he'd just sigh and say, because we forget. We forget who we are. I never forgot those words. Even as a boy, I felt like something wasn't right in the world. And somehow, those old stories made me want to live differently. It was a warm evening. I was helping my father tie up some woven baskets when I heard him say a name I didn't recognize. Yahweh, he said softly, almost like he was afraid to speak it too loud. What does that mean? I asked. He looked at me for a long moment. Then he said, that's his name, the one who made everything, the one Grandpa tells stories about. I felt a strange chill, like a breeze had passed right through me. That name, it sounded powerful and gentle all at once, not like the names of our neighbors' gods. Those names sounded harsh, but Yahweh, that name made me want to listen. Can I say it too? I asked. He nodded, but only with respect, only when your heart means it. So I tried. I whispered it into the night. Yahweh. I didn't know what I was doing, not really. But in that moment, something changed in me. I began to wonder if that quiet voice I felt under the stars was his. I began to talk to him more, even if I didn't always get an answer. As I grew older, I started to notice things I hadn't seen before. People were angry, loud, mean. Fights broke out over the smallest things. I saw men cheat one another in the marketplace. I saw children left hungry while others threw food away. I saw my neighbors hurt animals just for fun. There was a boy in our village who used to chase birds with stones. I asked him why he did it, and he just laughed, because I can. That answer stayed with me. It scared me. One time I saw a group of men steal a traveler's things and push him down into the dirt. I ran to get help, but no one wanted to get involved. They just turned their heads. My father looked sad when I told him. He said the world wasn't always like this, but it kept getting worse. People stopped praying. They stopped caring. Even some of my friends began to change. One of them lied about me just to take my place on a hunting trip. Another tricked my little brother into giving away his food. I felt angry. But more than that, I felt heartbroken. I didn't understand why everyone was turning cold. I'd lie awake at night asking Yahweh, "Do you see this? Do you still care?" And even though I didn't always hear an answer, I still talked to him. Maybe it was foolish, maybe not, but it helped me feel like I wasn't alone. Something deep inside me knew this wasn't how the world was meant to be, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something big was coming. When I was about a man, maybe just past 20, I started to feel something different inside me. It wasn't loud. It wasn't scary. It was like a quiet wind brushing across my heart, like someone gently calling my name, but without a voice. I'd be working or walking through the fields, and suddenly I'd stop. I didn't know why, but I'd feel still, like time paused for a moment, just long enough for something to touch my soul. At first, I thought it was just my imagination. I didn't tell anyone. I mean, who would believe me? But this quiet feeling kept coming back. It wasn't like anything else. It was calm and strong at the same time, like it knew me better than I knew myself, like it saw everything I was trying to hide and didn't turn away. I began to listen to that silence more. I'd go out into the hills alone and just sit, breathing slowly, waiting. I didn't hear words, not right away, but I felt like someone was nearby, someone who knew the world was broken, someone who was sad about it, someone who wanted me to listen. I remember one evening, the sky was full of golden light, and I felt it again, that quiet inside. And suddenly, it wasn't just a feeling anymore. It was a voice, not like any voice I'd heard before, not from the outside. It came from deeper than thought, a whisper that felt ancient. It said, "Noah." That was all, just my name, but I knew it wasn't coming from me. The voice came again days later, and again. Each time it brought a stillness I can't describe. I began to speak back, not out loud, just in my heart. I asked questions, I shared worries, I confessed things I didn't even understand, and over time the voice grew clearer. It didn't shout, it didn't rush. It waited until I was quiet enough to hear it. One night I asked, "Why are you calling me?" And I felt this weight, this sadness settle deep in my chest. Not mine, but his, like a sigh that had been waiting for years to be heard. I don't know how to explain it fully, but I understood the world was breaking God's heart. He showed me people through his eyes, the cruelty, the greed, the lies, the violence. He saw it all. Not just the big things, but the small choices that people thought didn't matter. The cheating, the pride, the way kindness was treated like weakness. It had gone on for too long. And the earth, his creation, it was groaning under the weight of it all. I felt his grief more than I heard it, like a father watching his children fight, destroy, forget him completely. And yet, within that sadness, I felt something else. Hope. A small spark. Like he wasn't ready to give up. Not yet. Not completely. Then came the part that shook me. He said to me, in that quiet, unmistakable voice, "Noah, I'm going to wash the world clean." but I want you to build an ark. I just stood there. I didn't move. I didn't even breathe. I thought, did I imagine that? A boat? For what? Rain? A flood? I had never seen a flood. Not like that. Sure, there were heavy rains once in a while, but nothing that could carry away cities. Not something that would need a boat the size he was describing. It didn't make sense. I asked, did I hear you right? And again, that same calm voice returned, clear, steady. Build it, make room, bring animals, prepare your family. I didn't sleep much that night. My head was spinning. The world had gone dark, but I sat by the fire replaying every word, every feeling. A part of me still doubted. Maybe I was just dreaming. Maybe it was madness. But another part, deep, steady, believed. And that part wouldn't let go. The next morning, I told my wife. I expected her to laugh, to shake her head and say I was overtired, but she didn't. She looked at me closely, saw the seriousness in my eyes, and said simply, "Then we build." I went to my sons next, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, strong boys, curious. I told them everything, the voice, the sadness, the warning, the boat. They were quiet for a long time. Then one of them, Shem, I think, said, "How big are we talking?" And just like that, they started sketching the frame with sticks in the dirt. I was stunned. I asked them, "You believe me?" And they said, "You've never lied to us. Why would you start now?" It was more than I had hoped for. I thought I'd have to beg them, argue, prove it. But they trusted me, maybe more than I trusted myself. And deep down, I knew it wasn't really about trusting me. It was about trusting the one who called me. We didn't shout it from the rooftops. We didn't try to convince the whole world. We just got to work, quietly, faithfully, day by day. I didn't know how it would all happen. I didn't even fully understand why he chose me. But I had heard his voice, and I couldn't unhear it. So we began, one plank at a time. We started early each morning, before the sun got too high. The heat would come fast, and the work was heavy. My sons and I spent our days cutting trees, shaping beams, and hauling wood. My hands grew rough, my back sore, but there was something steadying in the rhythm of it all. Chop, carry, building, repeat. It gave us something to focus on, something bigger than ourselves. We didn't have special tools or plans drawn on scrolls, just the instructions I was given, and a sense in my heart when something was right or not. Every piece had its place. Every measurement mattered. It was slow work, painfully slow sometimes. Days when the wood split the wrong way, or when rain soaked everything and we had to start again. People watched us. At first, they were curious. Then they laughed. Some would walk by and shout things like, "Building a boat in the desert? You expecting a sea to grow under your feet?" Others called me names, madman, dreamer, fool. A few brought their children just to point and giggle. I kept my head down. My sons did too. But I could see the anger building in their eyes. It wasn't easy, hearing those voices every day, working so hard while others mocked. Some days I wanted to shout back, but I didn't, not once. I reminded my boys, we're not building this for them. We're building it because he asked us to. That became our anchor, and still we built. One afternoon, while working near the back of the frame, I noticed something strange, a pair of birds watching us from a nearby tree. Nothing unusual at first, but then I noticed two foxes not far behind them, then two deer, 2 squirrels. They weren't just passing by, they were watching, calm, quiet, waiting. I didn't say anything at first. I thought maybe I was tired, seeing patterns where there weren't any. But the next day, more came. 2 goats, 2 rabbits, then a pair of small wildcats. They didn't attack each other. They didn't flee. They just stood in the shade, eyes on the boat. My sons saw them too. Are they coming to us? One of them whispered. I nodded. They're coming to him. And then we knew this wasn't just about us. We were part of something far beyond our understanding, something only God could arrange. The animals weren't afraid. They didn't resist. They came because they were called, just like I had been. So we began building stalls and spaces inside the ark, shaping them with care. Some animals arrived dirty, wounded, tired. We cleaned them, fed them. The work doubled, tripled, but none of us complained, because every pair that came felt like another whisper from heaven, saying, keep going. In the evenings, after the tools were laid down and the fire was lit, we would sit together, me, my wife, our sons, and their wives. The stars would come out, the wind would quiet, and we would pray. Not fancy prayers, not long ones, just simple, honest words. Thank you for today. Please give us strength for tomorrow. Protect the animals. Help us keep going. And somehow, we always had just enough strength to rise again the next day. We talked more during those years than we ever had before, working together, sweating together. It brought us close. We shared stories, dreams, fears. We sang while we worked. We cried sometimes too. But always, always, we returned to that quiet voice that had started it all. It became the center of our life. The ark wasn't just a boat. It was our act of trust. Every board we nailed down said, we believe you. And then, one day, I realized something. I didn't hear the mocking anymore. I don't know if people stopped, or if I'd simply stopped listening. The work had changed us. We were no longer building for the world's approval. We were building through obedience. I remember the moment it all came together. The frame was done, the inside finished, stalls built, food stored, doors crafted, pitch sealed every seam. The sky was cloudy that day, but the air was still. I held the final wooden peg in my hand, smooth, strong, shaped by weeks of careful work. My sons stood around me, waiting. No one said a word. I raised the hammer, took a breath, and drove it in. It echoed, not just through the ark, but through my chest, like the sound of an ending and a beginning. My eyes filled with tears, though I wasn't sure why. Relief, maybe, or awe, or both. We stepped back and looked at what we had built. It was huge, solid, beautiful in its own strange way. We didn't cheer. We didn't dance. We just stood there, quiet, watching the wind move across the fields, watching the clouds gather. My wife slipped her hand into mine. My sons put their arms around each other. The animals waited in calm silence behind us. The ark was ready, and so were we. The animals had all come, 2 by 2, just like he said. Some walked, some crawled, some flew in from places I'd never seen. My sons guided them in carefully. My wife made sure they were fed. The stalls were full, the supplies were packed, everything was done. There was nothing more to prepare. And then he told me it was time. I stood at the door of the ark. My heart beat slow and heavy. Outside, the sky had turned strange. Not dark, not bright, just heavy like it was holding its breath. People had gathered nearby, curious again. Some still laughed. Others stood silent, watching. No one came closer. I turned to look at my family. They were already inside, waiting. I took one last breath of the open air. Then I stepped in. The door. It closed on its own. I heard it. A deep, low sound of wood against wood. Final. Strong. Not slammed. Just closed. Like a seal being pressed shut. And then silence. A kind of silence I'd never felt before. Not empty. Not dead. Just still. Like the world itself had paused. Even the animals were quiet. No hoofbeats, no flapping wings, no growls or chirps, just the sound of our breathing, the faint creak of the ark's timbers. My wife sat near me, her hand clutching mine. My sons stood nearby. Their wives were whispering to the goats, but no one really spoke. Outside, we heard the first drop, just one, software, then another, then 100, then thousands. It didn't roar. It started gently, like a warning whispered across the roof. But it didn't stop. The rain kept falling, steady and cold. The wind picked up, slow at first, then harder. It whistled through the seams of the wood. The sky outside grew darker by the hour. Soon, we couldn't see anything through the small side windows, just gray. Then came the storm. The wind slammed against the sides of the ark, rattling the beams. Lightning flashed. Thunder cracked like the sky was splitting apart. The animals began to move, restless, uneasy. My sons and I calmed them as best we could. My wife sang quietly to the younger ones. I knelt beside a frightened calf and rested my hand on its back. And then I prayed. We all did. We huddled together, my sons, their wives, my wife and I, and we prayed, not with big words, just with trembling hearts. God, you told us to come in. Please stay with us now. Outside, I could hear voices, screaming, crying. I knew what it was, though I couldn't bear to think too long on it. People had seen the waters rise and realized it was too late. My chest ached. I wanted to run out, open the door, pull them in, but I couldn't. The door had been sealed, not by me, but by him. I wept, quietly. My wife held my head against her shoulder. We didn't speak about it. We just cried and prayed and waited. The water rose quickly. I felt the first sudden shift, the ark lifting, a strange feeling, being pulled upward without moving your feet. The floor tilted just slightly, then evened out. We were afloat. That first night, we barely slept. The ark creaked and groaned. The rain beat down like drums. The wind screamed through the black sky. The animals cried out now and then. Some shivered, some paced. I sat with them through the night, whispering soft words, though I don't know if they understood. Maybe they did. Maybe that's why they came. Day after day, the rain didn't stop. Morning blurred into evening. Light and darkness were hard to tell apart with clouds so thick. But we kept count. 40 days, 40 nights. We waited, listened, slept in turns. My sons took shifts walking the length of the ark, checking for leaks, feeding the animals. We told each other stories to pass the time. We laughed once in a while when the chickens jumped into someone's lap or when the monkeys stole berries from the supply baskets. But mostly we were quiet, just listening, just waiting. The water covered everything. I saw mountaintops vanish, one after another. There was nothing left of the world we had known, only water below and sky above. The ark floated gently most days, but sometimes the winds would return. We'd brace ourselves, hold on to the walls, sing songs to calm the animals. But the ark held. It always held. Weeks passed, then months. The rain had stopped, but the water didn't leave. It just sat there, still and endless. One morning, I climbed up to a small hatch and opened it to feel the air. The breeze was cool and quiet. No more thunder, no more storms, just peace. I stood there for a while, breathing it in, and then I remembered the dove. I'd kept a few in a small cage near the front. I reached for one, held it gently, and whispered, "Go. Find us dry ground." It flew up into the sky, wings wide and white, and vanished into the mist. We waited all day, but it came back, wings tired, feet empty. It landed on my arm and tucked its head under its wing. No land, not yet. I sighed, patted its head, and returned it to the cage. 7 days later, I tried again. Same dove, same flight. But this time, when it came back, it had something in its beak. A leaf, small, green, fresh. My hands trembled. I showed it to my wife, to my sons. No one said a word. We just stared at it, passed it gently from hand to hand. The first living thing we'd seen in months, so a sign, hope. The water was going down. We didn't dance, not yet. But we smiled for the first time in a long while. We sat close that night, warmer somehow. The animals seemed calmer too, like they could feel it, the world changing again. The dove had found something we couldn't see yet, but soon we would. The day I saw dry ground again, I didn't believe it at first. It had been so long, so many days of floating, waiting, listening to the water lap gently against the sides of the ark. I had almost forgotten what the earth smelled like. I had forgotten the sound of dirt underfoot, the way sunlight feels when it touches stone instead of wood. But that morning, when I looked out through the hatch, I saw it. Brown, solid, real. A mountaintop, bare and rough, rising from the quiet sea. Not just a dream, not some shape in the clouds, but land, earth. I didn't shout. I didn't run to wake the others. I just stared at it, my heart pounding slow and deep. My eyes filled with tears, and I whispered, "Thank you." That first patch of land gave us hope. We waited patiently, carefully, watching the water slowly drop day by day. More peaks appeared in the distance. The ark no longer drifted, so it rested, tilted slightly against a slope. We had come to a stop. We stayed inside a while longer, just to be sure. I opened the hatch each day, breathed the fresh air, felt the sunlight on my face. It felt different now, brighter, quieter, like the whole sky had been washed clean. Even the animals seemed to know something had changed. They stirred more, stood taller, sniffed the air through the cracks in the wood. Then at last, I heard that voice again. Calm, clear, the same voice that had first called my name all those years ago. Come out. No more waiting. We opened the doors. It was quiet outside. No voices, then no cities, no roads, just wind, trees, and the soft sounds of animals stretching, blinking into the sunlight. One by one, we guided them out. The birds flew first, soaring high into the blue sky. Then the deer, the foxes, the cattle. They moved slowly at first, cautious, then more freely. They scattered gently, not rushing, as if they understood this was a new beginning. My wife stepped out after them. Her feet touched the earth, and she knelt down, running her fingers through the dirt. She didn't say anything. She just closed her eyes and smiled. My sons followed, their wives too. We stood there for a moment, all of us, breathing deep. The smell of soil, of wind, of trees waking up again. It filled our lungs like the world itself was exhaling. Then I dropped to my knees. I pressed my forehead to the ground, not out of fear, out of awe, out of thanks. We didn't deserve to be here. We hadn't earned anything. We had only listened, obeyed, waited, and now here we were, alive, safe, together. I built an altar right there, stones stacked with care just like my grandfather had taught me. I gathered wood, lit a fire, and offered a sacrifice, not because God needed it, but because I needed to give something, anything. It was my way of saying, I remember, I trust you, I thank you. The smoke rose gently into the sky. We watched in silence, and then I saw it, a shimmer, a band of color, stretching from one edge of the sky to the other, soft at first, then clearer, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet, a bow of light in the clean, open sky. It was beautiful, not just because of the colors, but because of what it meant. I didn't need a voice to explain it. I could feel it in my chest. This wasn't just for me. It wasn't just decoration. It was a promise, a reminder that we were not forgotten, that even after judgment there is mercy, even after loss there can be peace. The wind blew gently through our clothes, the trees rustled, the animals grazed in quiet freedom. My family stood close, arms around each other. No one spoke. We just stared up at that rainbow, letting the colors sink into our hearts. A sign in the sky, a promise on the earth. We were home. My grandfather used to tell me stories at night, always the same one, but I never got tired of hearing it. He'd sit by the fire, rubbing his hands together, and say, "You know, boy, we come from survivors. Long ago, there was a great flood. Water rose above the mountains. Everything was washed away. But our ancestors, Noah and his sons, they built a boat, a big one, saved the animals, saved the people, saved us." I didn't understand all of it at the time, but I could picture it, the waves, the thunder, the animals lining up 2 by 2. He said it was a punishment sent by heaven because people had become too cruel, too selfish. It washed the world clean, he'd whisper, so we could begin again. After that flood, our people stayed close. We didn't wander. We built little houses, grew food, herded sheep. We all spoke the same language. That made things easier. No one argued over words. A nod meant yes. A smile meant peace. And when someone cried, we all understood. I remember my childhood feeling quiet, but full. We had enough. Not too much, not too little. I carried water from the river, fed goats, played with my cousins in the dirt. Life was plain, but it was steady. Sometimes the old ones would say, "As long as we stay together, we'll be safe." I believed them. I was just a boy, but I believed that if we stuck close, if we spoke the same words and worked the same fields, nothing bad would happen again. Then one day, something changed. It was hot. I remember that. The air felt thick. Dust floated in the sunlight like little spirits. We had all gathered in the middle of the camp, probably to hear the elders speak. That wasn't unusual. But this time, everyone looked a little more alert, like something was about to happen. Then Lamech stood up. He was the oldest man in the tribe. His beard was long, almost to his waist. His eyes were pale and cloudy, but they still seemed to see everything. When he spoke, everyone listened. No one dared interrupt. He said slowly, "We've been quiet for too long. Look around you. We are many. We are strong. We speak one language, yet we build small things, walls, huts, fences. But what if we built something greater?" People glanced at each other. A few raised eyebrows. Someone laughed softly. Then he raised his arm toward the sky. "What if we built a tower?" he said. "A tower so high it touches heaven itself. A tower that says, 'We are here and we are not afraid.' A tower that no flood can ever reach." And then he added, with a small smile, "Let us make a name for ourselves." The clearing went still. Even the children stopped fidgeting. No one said a word for a long breath. I remember staring at the sky, squinting into the light. A tower? To the heavens? I didn't even know what heaven looked like. Then someone clapped, and then another, and suddenly people were cheering, clapping, laughing, slapping each other on the back. They were excited, more excited than I had ever seen them. That same afternoon, people began gathering stones. Others started mixing mud for bricks. Someone yelled, "We'll need more hands." And just like that, we were building. I was assigned to carry bricks. It was hard work, especially in the heat, but I didn't complain. No one did. We all felt like we were doing something big, something bigger than any of us had ever imagined. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay on my mat, arms sore, palms blistered, but my mind racing. I kept picturing the tower not as it was, just a pile of bricks, but as it could be, reaching into the clouds, maybe even above them. Maybe we really could touch heaven. I didn't know what heaven would feel like, but now, for the first time in my life, I thought, maybe we could find out. We learned to make bricks from mud and straw. We let them bake in the sun until they were hard as stone. We mixed the mortar ourselves, sticky, dark, and heavy, and spread it between the bricks like jam between bread. At first, the work felt slow, a few walls here, a few steps there, but then it picked up. People started figuring things out, better ways to stack, to lift, to reach higher. We built ramps and wooden scaffolding. The older men taught the younger ones how to balance loads. Even the women and children helped carry water. We were proud. Every day the tower rose higher. At sunset, its shadow stretched farther and farther, over our tents, over our sheep pens, even into the nearby fields. I remember walking home one evening and realizing the tower's shadow had touched the river. That night, no one talked about dinner. Everyone just stared at the sky. There was a strange energy in the air. It buzzed through us. Even when we were tired, we didn't stop. It felt like we couldn't stop. One man shouted from halfway up the tower, This is something no one has ever done before." And people below cheered back, "We're going to reach the sky." Another said, "Let the heavens remember us." And someone else answered, "They will." Even I started to believe it. When I closed my eyes at night, I dreamed I was climbing endless stairs. Above me was light, warm, golden, like the sun, but softer. I climbed and climbed, and just as I reached the top, I don't know what I saw. A door, maybe, or a figure, or nothing at all. But I always woke up before I found out. The strange thing was, no one talked about the flood anymore. Not even grandfather. Not even the old ones. The flood used to be the reason for everything. Why we stayed close. Why we built things low and strong. Why we never traveled too far. But now, it was like it never happened. Instead, people said things like, "We're stronger than we've ever been," or "We don't need to fear anything now." Some even said, "We're becoming gods." I didn't say much. I was younger than most, and my job was just to carry bricks and mix mortar. But I listened, and I watched. People were louder now, more excited, but also more restless. We didn't sing the same work songs we used to. We stopped gathering in the evenings to share stories. Everyone just worked and worked. The tower was beautiful, though, truly. It was round, wide at the bottom, and narrowing as it climbed. We built it with patterns, dark and light bricks, in spirals and rows. Someone painted symbols on the side, but I didn't know what they meant. I remember one morning, I looked up and couldn't see the top anymore. It was swallowed by clouds. That made people even more thrilled. "We've reached the heavens," they cried. But deep down, I wasn't sure. I started having another kind of dream. In this one, I was climbing again, but the stairs began to shake. My hands couldn't find the railing. My feet slipped. I kept climbing, but I wasn't going anywhere. The sky above me stretched further and further away, and I felt so small, so quiet. I never told anyone about that dream. One night, after a long day of hauling stones, I sat by myself near the base of the tower. The bricks were warm from the sun. My arms were sore. The stars were just beginning to show. And I remember thinking, why are we really doing this? Is it to be together, or is it because we're afraid? Afraid of being forgotten? Afraid of being small again? I didn't know. Maybe it didn't matter. The tower kept rising either way, and every morning we all got up and kept building, brick by brick, stone by stone, towards something we couldn't even name. It started with the sky. A few days before everything changed, people began to notice strange things overhead. The clouds weren't moving the way they usually did. They would swirl and pause like they were watching us. Birds flew in odd patterns, circling the tower, then vanishing altogether. One evening, a dark shape passed across the sun just before it set. Not a bird, not a cloud, just something. It made everyone quiet for a moment, but then someone laughed and said, "Even the sky's curious about our tower." We laughed too and went back to work. But at night, the stars seemed wrong. They blinked faster, and some didn't show up at all. A few of the older workers whispered about omens. One man said he saw fire in the sky. Another said he heard music, but not from Earth. I didn't know what to think. The tower was almost beyond sight now. Every day we worked higher. Every night I slept deeper. And yet, I started waking up with a feeling in my chest, like the wind had changed direction, like something was coming. Then one morning, it happened. I remember it so clearly. The sky was gray, not stormy, just dull, the kind of light that makes everything feel heavier. I was on the lower level of the tower, stacking bricks as usual. I picked up a flat red one and turned to hand it to Eli, the man next to me. We'd done this together for weeks. "Here," I said, nodding toward the brick. He looked at me strangely, like I'd just made a joke he didn't get. I tried again. "Take the brick, Eli." He squinted. Ma, Shella?" I froze. "What?" "Shella," he said again, louder. It didn't sound like any word I knew. It didn't even sound like a joke. I laughed nervously. "Come on, stop messing around." He just stared at me. Then someone nearby dropped a bucket. It hit the stone floor with a loud crack. Another man shouted something I didn't understand. Someone answered back in another language I'd never heard. The sounds bounced around the tower like echoes from another world. And just like that, everything changed. No one could understand each other. Orders turned into gibberish. Questions became arguments. Arguments turned into shouting. Shouting turned into chaos. Bricks fell. Buckets spilled. A whole section of the tower's scaffolding collapsed because someone misunderstood a command. Tools were thrown. Walls cracked. People blamed each other, accused each other of lying, of tricking, of betraying. But the truth was, we were all just confused. I tried to speak to my cousin. We grew up together, shared a tent. But when I called his name, he stared at me like I was a stranger. Then he shouted something sharp, something that sounded angry, but I couldn't tell. I backed away. It was like a fever had swept through the camp, a fever of noise. Words no longer made sense. Hand signals failed. Even pointing brought confusion. Some people cried. Others just walked away. That night, the tower stood still. The fires burned low. The songs were gone. The air felt hollow, like the sky itself had taken a step back. By the second day, more than half the people were gone. Some packed quietly. Others left in angry groups, speaking strange words to each other, like forming tribes without even knowing it. On the third day, I climbed partway up the tower. I passed a few workers, but we didn't speak. We just looked at each other, tired and lost. I sat near the edge, staring out at the fields. The tower was still there. It hadn't fallen. It hadn't broken. But it was silent now. Dead, almost. We couldn't build anymore, not because we didn't have bricks, not because we lacked strength, but because we no longer had words. The camp emptied out slowly, like a jar of water tipped on its side. At first, people left in groups, families, friends, those who still somehow understood each other. They packed what they could, tools, blankets, bits of food. Some cried, some just walked away in silence. Our old campfires went out, one by one. No one bothered to light new ones. I stayed behind for a while. A few of us did. We were the ones who had no one to leave with. Or maybe we just weren't ready. I don't know. Eventually, I followed a small group south into a quiet valley where the hills were soft and the rivers ran clear. We didn't say much on the way. What was there to say? We had all lost something, and none of us had the words to name it. In time, we built new homes, small ones, nothing like the tower. We used simple tools, simple methods. It felt strange starting over, but it also felt calmer. Little by little, we began to speak again. Not the old language, but something new. It had fewer words, softer sounds, but somehow it worked. A gesture here, a look there. We found ways to mean things again. At first, I hated how different it all sounded. It felt like betrayal, like forgetting who we were. But eventually, I realized it wasn't forgetting. It was surviving. Now years have passed. Sometimes I dream of the tower. In the dream, it's even taller than I remember. So tall, the top disappears into stars. I start to climb slowly, step by step. I don't feel tired. I don't feel afraid. I just keep going. But I never reach the top. The stairs stretch on forever. The wind grows colder the higher I go. And then I wake up. Every time. I never see what's up there. Sometimes, when the sky is especially clear, I lie on my back and stare upward. I think about what we built. I think about what we lost. And I wonder if we hadn't reached so high, if we had just stayed close, stayed humble, would things have turned out different? No one can answer that, not even the sky. But I still remember the tower, and I always will. It was a quiet night, the kind of stillness where you can hear your own breath, feel your heartbeat. I was lying on the roof of my father's house in Ur, staring at the sky. The stars blinked like they were keeping secrets. And then, without sound or thunder, without wind or fire, I heard him. Not with my ears, no. It was deeper than that. It was like a voice inside my bones, soft but certain. Leave your country, leave your relatives, leave your father's house. Go to the land I will show you. I sat up slowly. My heart was racing. I looked around. Nothing had changed. The city walls still stood. The temple fires still flickered. The animals were quiet. But inside me, everything was different. I was 75 years old. I wasn't looking for a new beginning. I had land, servants, a name that people respected. I knew the streets of Ur like the lines on my palm. My memories lived here, my childhood, my family, the people I loved. But the voice didn't ask me what I wanted. It simply said, go. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat under the stars, wondering, praying, listening. Something inside me told me the voice was real. And more than that, it was good, trustworthy, pure. I didn't know who this God was yet, not really. But I knew I had heard him, and I knew I had to obey. The next morning, I told Sarai, my wife, my companion, my best friend. She looked at me with those steady eyes of hers and said, then we'll go? No fear, no protest, just quiet trust. That was Sarai. She didn't need to understand. She just held my hand, and that was enough. We packed our things slowly. I told my father, Tara. He didn't understand, but he came with us for a time. So did my nephew, Lot. We took servants, tents, goats, camels, everything we could carry. We didn't even know where we were going, just that we had to go. Leaving was harder than I thought. I touched the doorpost of my house one last time. I walked the streets of Ur, memorizing the cracks in the walls, the smell of the market, the sound of distant music. I didn't cry, but I felt something break open in me, a quiet grief mixed with hope. The road was long, dry, lonely. Some days the sun felt like it was burning straight through my skin. Other days the wind howled like a warning. We walked and walked, through hills, across rivers, into silence. At night we made camp. Sarai would prepare a small meal. Lot would gather wood. I would pitch the tent. Then, when all was quiet, I'd lie on the ground and look up. The stars were the same stars I had seen in Ur, but now they looked different, like they were following me, or maybe leading me. One night I asked Sarai, "Do you think we're crazy?" She smiled, that little half smile of hers. "No, I think we're brave." I laughed. It felt good to laugh, even out there, even in the unknown. Her courage gave me strength. Her presence was my comfort. Days turned into weeks. The scenery kept changing, but inside me, something stayed still, a quiet kind of peace. I didn't know where we were headed, but I trusted the one who called me. That was enough. I started building small altars, piles of stones, nothing fancy, just a way to say thank you, to mark the moments when he felt especially near. Sometimes I'd stand alone before the altar, close my eyes and whisper, "I'm still here. I'm still following." People thought I was foolish, a man my age dragging his wife and animals across the wilderness, chasing a voice only he could hear. But I didn't feel foolish. I felt chosen. One evening, Sarai and I sat by the fire. The wind was calm, the sky so clear it was like glass. We didn't say much. We just watched the flames, listened to the night, and in that quiet moment I realized something. I wasn't afraid anymore. I missed my home. I missed my people, but I didn't want to go back. Not because of what was behind me, but because of what was ahead. I didn't know what it was, but I knew it was good. I could feel it in the stillness. We kept walking, camp after camp, step after step. The land began to change. There were trees again, green hills, birds I'd never seen before. It felt like the edge of something holy. And all the while, I carried his words in my heart. "I will make you into a great nation. I will bless you. I will make your name great. And through you, all the families of the earth will be blessed." I didn't know how that could happen. I had no children. I was just a wanderer in tents. But the words stuck to my soul like honey, sweet, strong, unshakable. That night, I lay beside Sarai, under the open sky, her breathing slow and steady, the stars above us burning quietly. And I whispered again, "I'm still here. I'm still following." We finally arrived in Canaan. The air smelled different, fresh, like it had never been breathed before. The land stretched out in waves of green and gold, hills rolling like gentle shoulders, trees standing quiet like they were listening. Everything felt wide open, free, strange, but full of promise. I walked slowly at first, letting my feet sink into this new soil. I didn't know exactly where we were supposed to stop, but when we reached the great tree of Moreh, something inside me said, "This is it." That night, as the fire crackled and the stars returned to their places above me, I built an altar. Just stones, stacked by hand, nothing impressive. But it was the first thing I ever made in this land. Not a tent, not a wall, not a fence. An altar, a thank you, a marker, a memory. I didn't see the full picture, but I knew this land was a gift. We moved camp after that slowly, step by step, like we were learning the rhythm of the land. Every place we stopped, I built another altar, each one a whisper to the God who had led us this far, each one a reminder that I was still listening. But then, things changed. The grass grew thin, the ground cracked under our feet, streams dried up, the animals grew restless. We waited for rain, but none came. Day after day, the heat pressed down harder. Our food stores grew smaller. The goats grew weak. Sarai's face grew pale. I prayed. I waited. I watched the sky. And then I made a decision, not because of faith, but because of fear. I turned us south toward Egypt. I know now that wasn't where he wanted us to go. He had led us to Canaan. But when hunger knocked on our door, I panicked. I didn't hear his voice this time. Or maybe I just didn't stop long enough to listen. The journey to Egypt was long, dusty, heavy. Sarai never complained, but I saw the worry in her eyes. I tried to stay strong, tried to act like I had a plan. But the truth was, I didn't. And as we approached the gates of the city, another fear took hold of me. A different one, not about food, but about Sarai. She was beautiful. Even after all these years, her beauty hadn't faded. I saw the way men looked at her. I knew the way things worked in foreign cities. If Pharaoh saw her, he could take her. And if he knew she was my wife, he might kill me. So I said, "Tell them you're my sister." She looked at me in silence. I think that silence hurt more than if she had shouted, but she agreed. And just like I feared, the Egyptians noticed her right away. They praised her beauty before Pharaoh. She was taken into his palace. I was given gifts, cattle, silver, gold, servants. It felt like a curse wrapped in luxury. I had never felt so ashamed. I walked through the halls of Egypt, heavy with guilt. I couldn't sleep and I couldn't pray. I had told myself I was protecting us, but deep down I knew I had failed her. I had failed him, and yet God didn't abandon me. Strange things started happening in Pharaoh's household. Illness, restlessness, trouble. He called for me in anger, and somehow he knew. He knew Sarai was my wife. And still, he didn't kill me. He just told us to leave, told us to take everything and go. And so we left. With Sarai by my side, with the animals, the silver, the servants, with my heart bruised but still beating, with a new kind of silence between us, one that I would spend many nights trying to heal. We walked out of Egypt, back into the wilderness. The land was still dry. The way was still long. But I knew now, I never want to lead with fear again. I had built altars in Canaan. I had spoken prayers into the wind. But it took Egypt for me to see something deeper. God wasn't only in the beautiful places. He was also in the broken ones. Even when I lied, even when I failed, even when I tried to fix things my own way, he stayed near. When we crossed back into the land he had shown me, the first thing I did was return to the place of the altar, the first one, near Bethel. I didn't say much, just stood there, quiet, humbled, grateful, and this time I whispered, not, "I'm still following," but something softer. I'm still yours. It began with arguments, not between me and Lot, but between the men who worked for us. Our herds had grown large. The land between Bethel and Ai, where we had pitched our tents, was no longer enough. There wasn't enough grass, not enough water. Every day I heard more shouting, my servants accusing his servants blaming mine. Tension hung in the air like heat. I hated it. Lot was family, my nephew, like a son to me. We had traveled together, suffered together, celebrated together. I didn't want a rift between us. So one morning, as the sun climbed over the hills, I called him aside. There shouldn't be fighting between us, I told him. We're brothers, you and I. The land is wide. If you go left, I'll go right. If you go right, I'll go left. Lot looked out at the plains below. The land to the east, near the Jordan Valley, was lush, green, fertile, almost too perfect, like a garden. His eyes lit up when he saw it. He chose that land, near the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, and I watched him go. I stayed behind in the hill country of Canaan. It was drier, quieter, more rugged, but something in my heart felt light, like peace had returned to the camp. Sarai said nothing about Lot's choice. She only stood beside me as she always did, calm and steady. That night I walked away from the tents, just me and the stars. And then I heard him again, not in thunder, not in wind, just that same stillness that had spoken to me before, a presence, gentle but strong. Abram, he said, lift up your eyes, look north and south, east and west. All the land you see, I will give it to you and to your offspring forever. I looked around. The land stretched far in every direction. Silent hills, dark trees, quiet earth. It was beautiful, yes, but empty. I had no children, no son, no daughter, no heir. Just the promise floating in the night air. Then he said, I will make your descendants like the dust of the earth. If anyone could count the dust, then your descendants could be counted. I stood there in the darkness, feet pressed against the ground, dust beneath my sandals, stars above my head, and a silence inside me, too deep for words. I walked back to the tents and found Sarai asleep, her hand resting near the fire's dying glow. I lay beside her, staring at the roof of the tent, trying to picture what he had said. Dust, stars, children I hadn't yet met, a future I couldn't yet see. But I believed him, even though my arms were empty, even though Sarai's womb was still silent. Something in his voice made it impossible not to trust. He didn't just give me a promise, he gave me peace. We moved again, further into the land. I built another altar near the oaks of Mamre. It became our home base, a place to rest between wanderings, a place to pray. Then one night, he came to me again, in a vision. Don't be afraid, Abram, he said. I am your shield, your very great reward. I wanted to believe that. I truly did. But that night, something rose up in me, a quiet ache I had kept buried too long. I said, Lord, what can you give me, since I remain childless? You say you will bless me, but who will carry my name, a servant in my house? It felt strange, speaking so openly. But he didn't rebuke me. He simply brought me outside. Look up at the sky, he said. I did. The stars were everywhere, countless, shimmering, whispering. Count them if you can, he said. So shall your descendants be. And I stood there, mouth slightly open, heart strangely full. I couldn't count them, but I believed. That moment became part of me. I didn't understand how it would happen or when, but I chose to believe that the God who spoke stars into the sky could also speak life into our future. Then something even deeper happened. He told me to prepare a sacrifice, not for him, but with him. I took a heifer, a goat, a ram, each 3 years old, and also a dove and a young pigeon. I cut the larger animals in two, placing the halves opposite each other, as was the ancient custom. The birds I left whole. I waited. Hours passed. The sun dipped low. Buzzards came down, and I drove them away. Darkness gathered like a cloak. And then something holy fell. A thick, terrifying darkness. Not evil, but heavy. Sacred. I felt my knees buckle. My breath slowed. And into that darkness, he spoke again. He told me my descendants would be strangers in a land not their own, oppressed for 400 years. But afterward, they would come out with great possessions. He said I would die in peace at a good old age. I trembled. Then I saw it. A smoking firepot, a blazing torch. They passed between the pieces of the sacrifice, walking the path I should have walked, as if God himself were saying, if I break my promise, let me be broken. That night, under that terrifying darkness and brilliant light, he made a covenant with me. Not just a promise, a binding vow. And in the silence that followed, I knew I wasn't alone. I had never been. He had chosen me, spoken to me, walked with me. And now he had made it official with fire and smoke, dust and stars. The days turned into years. The years turned into silence. We waited and waited. Each morning I opened my eyes to an empty tent. Each night I listened to Sarai's soft breathing and the quiet absence of a child's cry. At first we told ourselves, it just isn't time yet. But after enough years, it began to sound like a lie we whispered to keep hope from slipping away. I was growing old, Sarai even older. We counted the lines on each other's faces more often than we counted the stars. She tried to smile, tried to believe, but I saw it in her eyes. She was tired, tired of waiting, tired of hoping, tired of holding her breath every time her body felt different, only to be disappointed again and again. One day, Sarai came to me with an idea. Her voice was calm, too calm. You know what the Lord said, she told me, but maybe he meant for it to happen a different way. Maybe it's not through me. Maybe it's through her. She gestured toward Hagar, her Egyptian servant, young, quiet, strong. I want you to sleep with her, Sarai said. Maybe I can build a family through her. I didn't answer right away. I should have waited longer. I should have prayed. But her voice sounded so tired, her eyes so resigned. and the waiting had been so hard, so I agreed. That night, Hagar came into my tent. She didn't say much. I didn't either. We just did what Sarai had suggested, and soon she's with child. At first, it seemed like a solution. We smiled again, made plans again, spoke of the future again. But the peace was short-lived. Hagar's gaze began to shift, no longer submissive, no longer quiet. She looked at Sarai differently now, with a tilt of pride, a sliver of superiority, a knowing smirk. And Sarai, her pain boiled into bitterness. "She looks down on me now," she said one evening. "I gave her into your arms, and now she mocks me. I tried to reason, tried to reassure, but the words fell flat." Sarai began treating Hagar harshly. Hagar ran away. It all unraveled so quickly. What had seemed like a solution turned into sorrow. What we thought was helping God turned out to be resisting him. Hagar returned eventually, changed, quieter, and when the child was born, we named him Ishmael. God hears. Because even in our mess, God had heard the cry of the brokenhearted. I loved my son. He was mine, my blood, my flesh. He laughed, he played, he followed me around the camp. He brought life into our tent. But something in me knew this wasn't the promised one. This wasn't the way. Still, I tried to believe that maybe, just maybe, this was enough. Then came that day. I was 99 years old. I stood outside the tent, as I had done so many mornings before, when I felt his presence again, thick, warm, undeniable. He spoke, not in a whisper this time, but in a voice that felt like thunder wrapped in tenderness. "I am God Almighty. Walk before me and be blameless." I bowed low, and he continued, "I am making my covenant between me and you. You will be the father of many nations. No longer will you be called Abram. Your name will be Abraham, for I have made you a father of many nations." Abraham, father of many. He changed my name, and then he said something even harder to believe. "As for Sarai, your wife, you are no longer to call her Sarai. Her name will be Sarah. I will bless her and surely give you a son by her." I laughed, not out loud, not rudely, but quietly inside myself, because I was almost 100, and Sarah, now Sarah, was 90. Could this really be happening? Could it still be for us? I fell face down and whispered, "If only Ishmael might live under your blessing." But he gently corrected me. "Yes, I will bless Ishmael, but your wife Sarah will bear you a son. You will call him Isaac." Isaac, laughter, and suddenly all the years of silence, all the waiting, all the trying to fix things ourselves, they melted in that moment. He hadn't forgotten. He still called us, still chose us, still spoke to us by name. My name was different now. Her name too. It was more than a new identity. It was a new beginning. The waiting had not been wasted. It was an ordinary day. The sun was high, the air dry and still. I sat at the entrance of my tent near the great trees of Mamre, letting the breeze touch my face. I was almost 100 years old, but I still woke early and checked the camp, spoke with the herdsmen, and made sure the tents were in good order. It gave me peace. Then I saw them, 3 men, standing not far off in the heat of the day. I don't know how I knew they were different. Maybe it was the stillness around them. Maybe it was the way they simply stood there, not speaking, not moving. I ran to greet them, bowed low to the ground, and said, "My lords, if I have found favor in your eyes, don't pass your servant by. Let me bring a little water, and you can wash your feet and rest under this tree. Let me get you something to eat, so you can be refreshed." They nodded. "Very well," one of them said. "Do as you say." I rushed back to the tent. "Quick," I told Sarah. "Need some flour, make fresh bread." Then I picked out a tender calf and had a servant prepare it. I brought curds, milk, and meat and set the meal before them. They ate under the tree while I stood nearby watching. Then one of them asked a question that made my breath catch. "Where is your wife Sarah?" "In the tent," I replied, glancing back nervously. He said, "I will return to you around this time next year, and Sarah, your wife, will have a son." Behind us, in the entrance of the tent, Sarah was listening. She laughed, not loud, not mocking, just a quiet, breathless laugh of disbelief. She was nearly 90. Her body had long stopped giving signs of life. Month after month, year after year, hope had drained from her like water from cracked stone. But the man, who I now understood was no ordinary man, turned and said, "Why did Sarah laugh? Is anything too hard for the Lord?" There was no answer, only the soft rustle of the wind through the branches. That night, Sarah didn't speak much. She sat beside the fire, staring into the flames, her hands resting on her lap. But there was a softness in her silence, a flicker of warmth behind her eyes. And a year later, it happened. I still remember the moment. Sarah's cry broke through the tent wall, then the voice of the midwife, then silence, thick and trembling. Then I heard it, a tiny sound, a wail, a baby, my son. I stepped into the tent and saw Sarah holding him, tears on her face and joy like sunlight in her eyes. We named him Isaac, which means laughter, because that's what God gave us. Laughter after sorrow, joy after waiting, life after silence. The camp was filled with singing. Servants brought gifts. Neighbors came from miles around to see the miracle. Sarah laughed openly now and said, "God has brought me laughter, and everyone who hears about this will laugh with me." I held him close, the son of promise. He smelled of milk and wool, and when he smiled in his sleep, I felt something in me heal. I had waited so long to feel the weight of a child in my arms. Years passed. Isaac grew. He was full of questions, curious, bright, always asking why the stars shone or why sheep walked in herds. He liked walking beside me, mimicking my stride, pretending to be the shepherd. He was everything I had dreamed of, and more. Then one morning, God spoke again. This time, the words pierced deeper than any sword. "Abraham," he said. "Here I am," I replied, as I always did. "Take your son, your only son, whom you love, Isaac, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on a mountain I will show you." I couldn't speak. The world around me blurred. I looked at Isaac, his sandals by the tent flap, his smile as he fed the lambs, the way he called Sarah Ima, and I heard it again. "Your son, whom you love." But I obeyed. The next morning I saddled a donkey, took 2 servants, took Isaac, took the wood. We traveled for 3 days. Isaac held my hand. He asked questions. "Where's the lamb, Abba?" I told him, "God will provide, my son." And I prayed with every step that somehow he would. We reached the mountain. I left the servants behind and climbed the slope with Isaac beside me. We built the altar together. I laid the wood, and then I told him. He looked into my eyes. I don't know what he saw: fear, pain, love, surrender. But he didn't run. He didn't fight. He trusted me. I laid him on the wood. I raised the knife. And then I heard it. "Abram, Abram." "I'm here," I cried, my voice breaking. "Do not lay a hand on the boy. Do not do anything to him. Now I know that you fear God, because you have not withheld from me your son, your only son." I dropped the knife. I collapsed in tears. Then I saw it, a ram caught in the thicket by its horns. We sacrificed it instead. I called that place Yahweh Yireh, the Lord will provide. Because on the mountain he did, and I understood then. God didn't want to take my son. He wanted my heart, my trust, and now I could finally give it. My name is Jacob. My father is Isaac. My grandfather was Abraham, the one who followed God into a land no one knew. I had a twin brother, Esau. He came out first, red and covered with hair like a little cloak. I came out right after, holding his heel. That's how I got my name, Jacob, the one who grabs. From the moment we were born, it felt like I was chasing him. Esau grew fast, strong, loud, fearless. He spent his days in the fields hunting and came home with blood on his hands and stories in his mouth. My father loved him, said he was a man's man. He said he reminded him of himself. I was different. I liked quiet places, smooth thoughts. I stayed in the tents, listening to the women talk, learning how to cook, how to wait. My mother, Rebecca, understood me. She saw what others didn't. Still, I was always second. Esau came first. He got the attention, the honor, the birthright. People smiled when they saw him. They nodded when he spoke. I was there too, always just a little behind. I didn't fight with my fists, but I thought a lot. I paid attention. I waited. One day, Esau came in from the fields, looking like he was about to fall over. He threw his bow on the ground and dropped to his knees, eyes fixed on the stew I was making. "I'm starving," he said. "Give me some of that red stuff." It was lentil stew, hot, thick, spiced, just right. The smell filled the tent. "You want some?" I asked. "I'm dying here." "Come on, give me some." "You can have it," I said, "but trade me your birthright." He laughed. "What good is a birthright if I die of hunger?" "Swear it," I said, right now. And he did, just like that. He gave up his place as the firstborn for a bowl of stew. I handed it to him and watched him eat like nothing had happened. But something had. From that day on, the birthright was mine. Time passed. Our father grew old. His eyes went dim. He knew his days were numbered, so one morning he called Esau into his tent. Go hunt for me, he said. Make me a meal I love. Then I'll give you my blessing before I die. The blessing, the one thing greater than the birthright. Once spoken, it couldn't be taken back. It was like handing over the future itself. My mother overheard them. As soon as Esau left with his bow, she came to find me. You have to go in his place, she whispered. Bring me 2 young goats. I'll make the food your father loves. You'll take it to him, and he'll bless you instead. But he'll know, I said. Esau is hairy. I'm smooth. I'll take the blame if anything goes wrong, she said. Just do what I say. So I did. I brought her the goats. She cooked the meat just the way my father liked. Then she dressed me in Esau's clothes, wrapped goatskins around my hands and neck, and handed me the plate. My heart was pounding as I stepped into the tent. I tried to lower my voice. My father, I said. Who are you? My son. I'm Esau, I said. Your firstborn. He sounded uncertain. How did you hunt so quickly? God gave me success, I said. Come closer, he said. I moved in. He touched my hands. The voice is Jacob's, he said, but the hands are Esau's. He ate the food. He drank the wine. Then he leaned over me and placed his hand on my head. His voice was tired but strong. May God give you the dew of heaven and the richness of the earth. May nations serve you. May your brothers bow to you. Those who curse you will be cursed. Those who bless you will be blessed. I stood still, holding my breath, and just like that, it was done. I left the tent quietly, trying not to shake. I thought I had made it. I thought the struggle was over. Then Esau came home. He made the meal, walked into the tent, and said, Here I am, Father. My father froze. Who are you? I'm Esau, he said, your firstborn. Isaac trembled. Then who was just here? They both knew. Esau let out a cry I will never forget. It echoed across the camp like something wild had broken loose. Bless me too, Father, he begged. Is there nothing left for me? I've already given him everything, my father said. He will rule over you now. Esau turned cold. His eyes locked on mine like a hunter on prey. As soon as father dies, he said, I'll kill Jacob. My mother heard. She came to me that night with fear in her voice. You have to go, she said. Run to my brother Laban. Stay there until your brother calms down. I packed what I could carry. No servants, no animals, just me and my staff. I left everything behind. The tents, the fields, the voices, the stories, the father I had tricked, the brother I had stolen from. I walked into the night, into the unknown, carrying a blessing that wasn't meant to be mine and a fear that wouldn't leave my side. I was on the run, alone, with nothing but a walking stick and the clothes on my back. The land around me was dry and wide, the sky too quiet. Each step away from home felt heavier than the last. I didn't know where I was going. I just kept walking, thinking about Esau's face, my father's voice, my mother's last words. Somewhere in the distance was my Uncle Laban's house, but it felt like another world away. One night I was too tired to keep going. I found a flat patch of ground, grabbed a stone for a pillow, and lay down under the stars. I thought sleep would be cold and hard, but that night something strange happened. I dreamed. In my dream, there was a ladder. It stretched from the ground all the way to the sky. Angels were going up and down on it, moving between heaven and earth like they belonged to both. And above the ladder stood God Himself. He said, "I am the Lord, the God of Abraham and of Isaac. This land you're lying on, I will give it to you and to your children. Your descendants will spread out in every direction, like dust in the wind, and through your family, the whole world will be blessed. I am with you. I will watch over you wherever you go. I will bring you back to this land. I will not leave you until I have done what I promised." I woke up trembling. The sun was just rising. The stone under my head felt heavier somehow. I looked around and whispered, "God is in this place," and I didn't know it. I was afraid, but also full of wonder. I took the stone, stood it up, and poured oil on it. Then I made a vow. If God stays with me, gives me food and clothes, and brings me back home safely, then the Lord will be my God. With that, I kept walking. The road didn't feel quite so empty anymore. Days later, I saw a well in a field. 3 flocks of sheep lay nearby. As I approached, I noticed a girl coming with her sheep. She was beautiful. Something in me stopped. Her name was Rachel. I helped her water her sheep, then asked if she knew a man named Laban. "I'm his daughter," she said, smiling. That's how I found my uncle's home. When I told him who I was, he hugged me and said, "You are my own flesh and blood." He took me in, gave me a place to stay, and let me work with his flocks. At first, everything felt like a blessing. I worked hard and kept to myself. A month later, Laban said, "You shouldn't work for free." "What should I pay you?" I answered without thinking, "I'll work 7 years for Rachel." He agreed. 7 years. That's how long I was willing to work just to marry her. It sounds long, but to me it felt like a few days. Every time I saw her, the time melted. I'd sweat under the sun all day, but her smile made it all worth it. Finally, the day came. The wedding feast was full of food and laughter. I drank. I celebrated. I danced. At night, in the darkness of the tent, my bride was brought to me. But in the morning, I saw her face. It wasn't Rachel. It was Leah, her older sister. I stumbled out of the tent and stormed to Laban. "What have you done to me? I worked 7 years for Rachel. Why did you trick me?" Laban said calmly, "It's not our custom to marry off the younger daughter before the older. Finish this bridal week, then I'll give you Rachel too, if you agree to work another 7 years. I was furious, but what could I do? I loved Rachel, so I agreed. I stayed with Leah for the 7-day wedding period. Then Laban gave me Rachel as well. 2 wives, 2 sisters, 1 home. It was not peaceful. Leah knew I loved Rachel more. She saw it in my eyes. I tried to be fair, but my heart was not even. God saw Leah's pain. He gave her sons, one after another. Rachel remained childless, and with each son Leah bore, the tension grew. Soon, both women gave me their servants to bear children too. Bilhah, Zilpah. More sons, more names, more tents filled with crying babies and jealous eyes. What started as love became something heavier. I still worked every day for Laban's flocks, but home was filled with noise, laughter, shouting, whispers, tears. 7 more years passed. I kept my promise. I had Rachel, but the cost was higher than I expected. 2 wives who competed for love, children who competed for attention, and me, caught in the middle, wondering what kind of man I was becoming. But I had seen the latter. I had heard God's voice, and deep down, I believed He was still with me, even in the mess. The years kept passing, and so did the children. Leah gave me sons, one after another. She named them with hope in her voice, thinking each time I might finally love her more. Rachel, still childless at first, grew bitter. She begged me, "Give me children, or I'll die," I told her. "I'm not God." But to her that wasn't enough. So she gave me her servant, Bilhah. 2 sons came through her. Leah, not wanting to fall behind, gave me her own servant, Zilpah. More sons, more names, more reasons for jealousy. Every birth was followed by whispers, sharp glances, and silent nights. Eventually, Rachel had a son. She named him Joseph, and just like that, she became even more dear to me. The tent she slept in became the one I always drifted toward, and that didn't help anything. Our home was full of life, but rarely peace. Between the 4 women and all the children, it felt like a small, loud village. Someone was always angry, someone was always left out, and someone was always being born. I tried to lead, I tried to be fair. But the truth is, I was tired. I was a shepherd by day, a husband and father by night, and somehow still the same Jacob, always stuck between 2 sides. Then came the matter of flocks. For years, I worked for Laban without complaint. I took care of his herds, grew his wealth, made sure nothing was lost. One day, I asked him, "When can I build something for my own family? What can I take as my wages?" He asked, "What do you want?" I said, "Let me take all the speckled and spotted sheep and all the dark-colored goats. They'll be mine. The pure ones can stay with you." It sounded fair. He agreed. But as always, Laban was tricky. That same day, he secretly removed all the speckled and spotted animals and gave them to his sons, sending them far away. He thought he'd outsmarted me, but I had a plan too. I placed peeled branches in the watering troughs, branches that were striped and spotted. I set them where the strong animals mated, and somehow God blessed it. The lambs that were born, strong, healthy, speckled, and mine. Soon my flocks were growing faster than his. My servants grew in number. My tents spread wider, and Laban's face grew colder. His sons whispered that I was stealing everything. Laban stopped smiling when he saw me. I could feel his eyes watching, his words sharpening. That's when God spoke again. "Go back to the land of your fathers," he said. "I'll be with you." So I called Rachel and Leah into the fields, away from the others. I told them everything, how their father had cheated me, how God had blessed me, how it was time to leave. They looked at each other, then nodded. "Do whatever God has told you," they said. "Our father sold us like property. He spent what you earned. We have nothing here." So we packed up, quietly, quickly, everything we owned, servants, children, flocks. We gathered it all. While Laban was away shearing his sheep, we slipped away like shadows. I didn't tell him. I couldn't. I knew he wouldn't let us go, not without a fight. For days we traveled. Then one morning word came. Laban was chasing us. He was only a day behind. That night I didn't sleep. I waited, listening to the wind, wondering if I had made a terrible mistake. But then God appeared to Laban in a dream and said, "Don't say anything good or bad to Jacob." When he finally caught up to us, he was angry but careful. We argued. He searched my tents, thinking I had stolen his household gods. I hadn't, but Rachel had taken them and hidden them in a camel's saddle. Laban didn't find them. In the end, we made a covenant, a pile of stones as a witness. He would not come past that line to harm me. I promised the same. He kissed his daughters and grandchildren, then left. I watched him disappear into the hills, and for the first time in years, I breathed deeply. But peace didn't last. News came that Esau was coming, and not alone. 400 men were with him. I froze. After all these years, had he not forgotten? Had he come for revenge? I began dividing my people into groups, flocks, herds, children, wives. I told the servants to go ahead in waves, each group carrying gifts, goats, sheep, camels, cows, donkeys. Isutski, when Esau sees you, tell him, "These belong to your servant Jacob. He's coming behind us." Maybe, I thought, if I send enough gifts, if I bow enough times, if I call him Lord instead of brother, he'll forgive me. That night I couldn't sleep. I got up, took my wives and children across the stream, and sent them ahead. I stayed behind, alone. The stars were out, the wind was still, and I sat by the river, heart pounding, waiting for morning and for whatever would come with it. The night before I met Esau, I stayed behind alone. I couldn't sleep. My thoughts were heavy, my body restless. I had crossed so many miles, escaped so many dangers, and now I was about to face the one person I had feared for most of my life. Then, out of the silence, a man appeared. I didn't know who he was. He didn't speak. He just came at me, and we wrestled. No weapons, no words, just hands and breath and dust. The struggle went on all night. He was strong. Every time I thought I had him, he pushed back harder. My arms ached, my legs trembled, but I wouldn't let go. I couldn't. It wasn't just a man. It felt like something more, like I was wrestling my past, my fear, even God himself. As dawn broke, he touched my hip, and pain shot through me. I couldn't stand straight, but still, I held on. "Let me go," he said. "Not unless you bless me," I answered. "What is your name?" he asked. "Jacob." "Not anymore," he said. "From now on, you will be called Israel, because you have struggled with God and with men and have prevailed." Then he blessed me. When I looked up, he was gone. I limped away from that place with a new name, a new wound, and a heart that felt different. I had seen God face to face, and somehow I was still alive. Morning came. I looked out and saw Esau approaching with his men. My breath caught in my throat. I bowed low 7 times as I walked toward him. I expected anger. I expected shouting, maybe even a sword. But he ran. He ran to me and threw his arms around me. He wept. So did I. All those years, all that fear melted away in that embrace. We stood there like brothers again, without tricks, without lies, just 2 sons of the same father. He asked about my family, my children, my flocks. I offered him gifts, and though he tried to refuse, I insisted. Seeing your face, I told him, is like seeing the face of God. We didn't travel together long. Our lives had gone in different directions. But that day, the weight on my chest lifted. I had come home, and I was not destroyed. Not long after, sorrow returned. Rachel was pregnant again. We were on the move, making our way toward Ephrath. She went into labor on the road. I held her hand, heard her cries. Something was wrong. She was fading. She gave birth to a son, but her voice was weak. She named him Ben-Oni, son of my sorrow. But I called him Benjamin, son of my right hand. Then she was gone. I buried her there beside the road. I set a stone on her grave. I still remember her laugh, the way her eyes lit up when she smiled. Of all the things I had lost and gained, losing her cut the deepest. Life went on. My children grew. One of them, Joseph, Rachel's first, was different. He dreamed, big dreams, strange dreams. He told his brothers, I saw all of you bowing to me. They didn't take it well. I should have known. I had made it too obvious. I loved him more. I gave him a beautiful robe. I trusted him with tasks the others didn't get. I thought he was special. Maybe I shouldn't have said it out loud. The brothers grew cold toward him. I saw it, but I didn't act fast enough. One day I sent Joseph to check on them in the fields. He never came back. They told me a wild animal had torn him apart. They handed me his robe, soaked in blood. I tore my clothes. I wept until I had no tears left. For days, weeks, months, I could barely speak his name. I said I would mourn until the day I died, but I kept going. The herds still needed tending. The tents still needed mending. Sons kept growing. Life didn't stop, even when my heart did. Now I am old. I sit at the edge of the camp and watch the sun go down. My hair is white. My body aches. But my family is here. My sons have sons. The tents stretch farther than I can count. I think back to the dream I once had of the ladder reaching up to heaven. I didn't understand it then. I still don't, not completely. But I've seen enough now to know God was there in every step, in every mistake, in every blessing and every wound. My name is Israel now. I've wrestled, I've wandered, I've wept. And somehow, through it all, God never let go of me. Hi, my name is Joseph. I was one of 12 sons. My father's name was Jacob, and he loved me more than all my brothers. He gave me this coat once, bright and colorful, like a rainbow you could wear. I remember the way my coat shimmered in the sun. It was long, full of colors, and unlike anything my brothers ever wore. My father gave it to me with a smile so warm it made my heart float. He loved me, and I knew it. Maybe too well, maybe too obviously. Every time I walked past my brothers, I could feel their eyes on me, not just watching, judging. They didn't say much, but their silence said everything. I wasn't just their younger brother anymore. I was the one who didn't belong, the one who had something they didn't. At first, I didn't understand. I just thought they were tired from work, or maybe I'd done something wrong without realizing it. I tried to be cheerful around them, tried to share what I was thinking, what I was dreaming. But that only made it worse. One night I had a dream. We were all out in the field, tying up bundles of grain. Suddenly, my bundle stood up straight, and all of theirs bowed down to it. When I woke up, I couldn't wait to tell them. I thought it was funny, even kind of amazing. I didn't mean anything by it, but their faces darkened. They didn't smile. One of them asked, "So, you think you're better than us now?" I tried to explain, but they were already walking away. Then I had another dream. This time, the sun, the moon, and 11 stars were bowing down to me. I told my father. Even he looked concerned. He didn't say much, but I could tell he was thinking hard about it. My brothers? They looked like they wanted to throw something at me. I stopped telling them my dreams after that. One day, my father asked me to go check on my brothers. They were out in the fields, far from home, tending the flocks. I said yes right away. I wanted to make peace with them, maybe bring them some news, or just talk. Maybe things would be better this time. I never imagined I wouldn't come back. It was hot that day. Dust clung to my sandals. I walked for hours, asking strangers where my brothers had gone, until someone pointed me toward Dothan. I followed the path, not knowing I was walking toward the worst day of my life. I saw them before they saw me. They were sitting under a tree, resting. I waved and shouted their names. They didn't wave back. Later, I found out they saw me coming from far off and started talking about me before I even arrived. When I got close, they didn't greet me. No smiles, no hello, just angry eyes and quiet steps. And then, hands grabbing me, pulling off my coat. That beautiful coat, the one that made me feel loved. They tore it from me like it didn't matter at all. I didn't understand. I shouted their names. I asked them what they were doing. They didn't answer. They dragged me to a nearby pit, deep, dark, empty. Before I could even scream again, they threw me in. I hit the ground hard. The air rushed out of my lungs. It was cold down there, and the walls were too high to climb. I looked up and saw them, silhouettes against the sky. Then they were gone. I sat in the dirt, shaking. My knees scraped, my hands trembling. I called out. Nothing. I cried. Still nothing. Then I heard laughter. They were eating lunch. Just eating. While I sat at the bottom of a pit, scared and alone, I heard voices again, arguing. One of them wanted to leave me there to die. Another said no, that wasn't right. I didn't know who was saying what. I just knew they weren't talking about rescuing me. They were deciding what to do with me, like I was an object, not their brother. Hoofbeats, dust, camels, then rope. They pulled me up without a word. For a moment, I thought they'd changed their minds. Maybe they were bringing me home. But I saw the strangers, men with dark eyes and foreign clothes, traders, merchants. I looked at my brothers, confused. Then I felt my hands tied. No one said goodbye. No one looked me in the eye. They sold me for 20 pieces of silver. I rode with the traders, arms tied, legs sore, my face still wet from crying. My coat was gone. My family was gone. I looked back, hoping to see someone chasing after us. No one came. The road to Egypt was long. The sun burned my neck. The camels walked slowly, each step a reminder that I wasn't free anymore. Every bump in the road hurt. I thought about home, about my father. Was he waiting for me at dinner? Was he wondering why I was late? I wanted to scream, but I stayed quiet. There was no one left to hear me. The journey to Egypt felt endless. Dust in my eyes, rope on my wrists, strangers all around. When we finally arrived, they sold me again, this time to a man named Potiphar. He was an officer of Pharaoh, a captain of the guard. His house was big, quiet, and full of rules. I was a servant now. No more dreams, no more colorful coat, just work. My first job was sweeping floors, big stone floors that seemed to collect dust faster than I could move, then carrying water, heavy jars twice as big as my arms, then washing clothes, rubbing fabric until my fingers were raw. I wasn't good at everything, but I worked hard. I didn't complain. I remembered who I was, even if no one else did. Time passed. Potiphar started to notice. He saw that I finished tasks before others, that I didn't argue, that I tried to do things right the first time. One day he asked me to bring him something. Then he asked me to help with records, then with managing the kitchen, then the whole house. Before I realized it, I was in charge of everything he owned. He trusted me. He gave me the keys, the lists, the decisions. He only worried about his food. Everything else was in my hands. It felt strange, being a slave, and yet so trusted. I stayed humble. I remembered where I came from. I thanked God quietly each morning, even if no one was listening. But then something happened, something I never saw coming. Potiphar's wife started noticing me too, but not the way her husband did. She watched me when I walked by. She started calling me closer. Her voice too sweet, her words too strange. One day, she asked me to lie with her. I froze. My heart beat faster. I said no. I told her, "Your husband trusts me. I can't betray him. I can't do this against God." But she didn't stop. Day after day, she tried again. I avoided her. I kept to my work. I didn't meet her eyes. Then came the worst day of all. No one else was in the house. She grabbed me by my cloak, her voice firm now, demanding. I ran. I didn't even think. I pulled away so fast my cloak tore off in her hands. I ran outside, heart pounding, hands shaking. She screamed. Servants came running. Guards followed. She held my cloak and pointed at me, her face full of lies. They didn't ask questions. Potiphar was furious. I couldn't blame him. His wife showed him the cloak. She told him a story that wasn't true. He didn't look at me. He just sent me to prison. Cold walls, iron bars, no light, no color, just silence. That's where I lived now. At first, I lay on the floor and stared at the ceiling. My back hurt. My throat stayed dry. I didn't speak much. I wondered if I'd stay there forever, if my name would ever be cleared. But I still worked. Even in the prison, I swept. I cleaned. I helped other prisoners with small things. And slowly, the guard began to trust me. I guess they saw something in me too. They gave me small responsibilities, then more. Soon, I was managing things inside the prison, just like I had in Potiphar's house. Then one day, 2 new men arrived. They weren't normal prisoners. One had been Pharaoh's cupbearer, the other, his baker. They looked nervous, like they weren't used to being locked up. I checked on them often. One morning, I found them both looking troubled. "What's wrong?" I asked. They looked up, surprised. "We both had dreams," one of them said, "but there's no one here to interpret them." I told them gently, "Interpretations belong to God, but tell me your dreams. I'll listen." The cupbearer went first. He said, "In my dream, there was a vine with 3 branches. It budded, blossomed, and clusters of grapes grew. I took the grapes and squeezed them into Pharaoh's cup and placed it in his hand. I nodded slowly. In 3 days, Pharaoh will lift you up and restore you to your position. You'll serve him again." His face lit up. I added softly, "When you're free, please remember me. Mention me to Pharaoh. I don't belong here." Then the baker spoke. He said, "In my dream, I had 3 baskets of bread on my head. The top basket had all kinds of baked goods for Pharaoh, but birds were eating from it." I paused. My heart sank. I didn't want to tell him the truth, but I had to. "In 3 days, Pharaoh will lift off your head and hang you. The birds will eat your flesh." He turned pale. 3 days later, it happened just like I said. The cupbearer was restored. The baker was executed. As the cupbearer walked out of prison, I stood near the bars and whispered, "Don't forget me." But he did. Days passed, then weeks, then months. I kept waiting for footsteps, for a door to open, for someone to call my name. Nothing came. I swept the same floors, ate the same bread, slept on the same cold ground. 2 full years went by, but I didn't stop trusting. Not completely, not even when everything seemed silent. I was lying on the prison floor, half asleep, when I heard footsteps, fast ones, then keys jingling, then the door swinging open. "Joseph," someone said, a little out of breath, "Pharaoh wants to see you." I sat up too quickly and hit my head on the wall. "Pharaoh?" I repeated, thinking I misheard. The guard didn't smile. "Get up, now." They didn't give me time to think. One man handed me clean clothes. Another brought a razor and a bowl of water. I looked in the water's reflection. My beard had grown wild. My hair was messy. My face looked tired, older. But my eyes still had hope. I shaved in silence, my hands shaking just a little. I didn't know what this was. A chance? A trap? A joke? I followed them through hallways I'd never seen, Upstairs, I didn't know existed. Light started to pour in. The walls changed from stone to polished marble, and then I was outside. Then I was in the palace. Then I was standing before Pharaoh. He didn't speak at first, just stared. He looked powerful, like someone used to being obeyed. His clothes shimmered. His ring caught the light when he raised his hand. "I've had a dream," he said. "No one can explain it, but I heard you can." I looked around. Everyone else was watching me, waiting, expecting. I took a slow breath. "I can't," I said quietly, "but God can. If he chooses, he'll give Pharaoh an answer." Pharaoh didn't look angry. That was a good sign. He began telling me the dream. "I was standing by the Nile," he said, "and out of the river came 7 cows, healthy, fat, beautiful. They grazed in the reeds. Then 7 other cows came up, thin, ugly, sickly. I've never seen anything like them in Egypt. And the thin cows ate the fat ones, but they stayed just as thin afterward. Then I woke up." He paused, then continued. "Then I fell asleep again and dreamed about 7 ears of grain, full, healthy, growing on a single stalk. After them came 7 more, thin, scorched by the east wind, and the thin ones swallowed the full ones. I told this to my magicians. They had no answer." I stood there quietly for a moment. Then I spoke. "Pharaoh's dreams are one and the same. God is showing you what he is about to do." Pharaoh leaned forward. "The 7 healthy cows are 7 good years. The 7 full heads of grain, also 7 good years. There will be abundance in Egypt, but then—" I looked him in the eyes. "Then 7 years of famine will come, severe, crushing, so bad the good years will be forgotten." Pharaoh's face stayed still, but I saw something move behind his eyes. "Let Pharaoh appoint someone wise," I said, trying not to tremble. "Let him store grain during the good years, so when the famine comes, Egypt will have food, people won't die, cities won't fall." Silence. The room was completely quiet. Then Pharaoh turned to his advisors. "Can we find anyone like this man, one in whom the Spirit of God lives?" He looked back at me. "You shall be over my house, over my people. Only in the throne will I be greater than you." I didn't move. I didn't blink. He stood, took off his signet ring, slipped it onto my finger. He called for robes, fine ones white and gold. He gave me a gold chain, sandals, a new name, a chariot. Servants bowed. Officials stepped aside as I passed. The people shouted. Musicians played. I was taken through the streets of Egypt like I had always belonged there. But inside, I still felt like the boy with a torn coat. I thought of my father. Was he well? Was he still mourning me? Did he believe I was dead? I didn't have answers, but I had a mission now, a job too big to fully understand yet. The palace was big, loud, and full of strange customs. I smiled when I was expected to. I gave orders when asked. I learned to walk like a leader, to speak like a ruler. But at night, when everything was quiet again, I sat by the window and looked out at the stars. And I remembered the dreams I once had. The famine spread fast. It didn't just touch Egypt. It reached far and wide. People came from every direction, desperate to buy grain. I saw their faces every day, tired, worried, hungry. Some looked grateful, others looked ashamed. One morning I looked up from the grain records and froze. 10 men stood in front of me, dusty, bearded, worn by the sun and the road. But I knew them. I would have known them anywhere. My brothers, they didn't know me. I had changed. My clothes, my voice, the way I stood, and why would they ever expect to see me here? They bowed before me. The moment their knees touched the ground, something inside me shifted. My dream, the one I had when I was still a boy, it had come true. I kept my face still, my voice firm. I didn't speak to them like a brother. I spoke like a stranger. "Where are you from?" I asked. "From the land of Canaan," they answered. "We've come to buy food." I stared at them. My mind was spinning. Were they sorry? Did they think of me? Did they remember the pit? I accused them of being spies. I needed time. I needed to see what kind of men they had become. They panicked. "We're honest men," they said. "There were 12 of us. One is gone. The youngest is at home with our father." That youngest, my little brother, Benjamin. I hadn't seen him in years. He was just a child when I was taken. Was he safe? Was he kind? I said, "You'll prove your honesty. One of you will stay here. The rest will go home and bring back your youngest brother." I chose Simeon to stay. He didn't argue as the guards tied his hands. The others took their sacks of grain and left, confused and frightened. Before they left, I quietly told my servant, "Put their money back in their bags." Days passed. I waited, and then they returned. This time Benjamin was with them. I saw him standing there, quiet and wide-eyed. He looked like our mother. Something deep in me ached when I saw him, but I kept my mask on. I invited them to a meal. I seated them by age. They looked at one another, surprised. I gave Benjamin 5 times as much food as the others. They didn't complain. Later, I told my steward to hide my silver cup in Benjamin's sack. After they left the city, I sent my men after them. "Why did you steal from me?" they shouted. The brothers denied it. "If one of us has the cup, let him die." They opened the sacks. The cup was in Benjamin's. The brothers tore their clothes. They came back to me together. No one ran. No one abandoned him. Judah stepped forward. His voice shook. "Take me instead," he said. "Let the boy go home. Our father, he won't survive losing him." My heart broke. They were not the same men who threw me away. I couldn't hold it in anymore. I turned away from them and wept. Then I faced them again. "I am Joseph." Their eyes widened. No one moved. No one spoke. "I am your brother," I said, my voice trembling, "the one you sold into Egypt." Still, they were silent, frozen, terrified. "Don't be afraid," I said quickly. "Don't be angry with yourselves. God sent me ahead of you to save lives." I stepped closer. They didn't run. One by one they came forward. I held them. I wept again, and for the first time in years, I was not alone. The first words out of my mouth after everything were not about revenge or justice. They weren't angry or proud. Is my father still alive? That was all I cared about. They nodded, slowly at first, then with more certainty. Yes, one of them said, but he still thinks you're gone. I closed my eyes. For all these years, he thought I was dead. Every meal, every night, every time he looked at my younger brother. All those years, carrying a grief that wasn't real, but felt just as heavy. I couldn't wait another moment. Go, I told them. Go back to him. Tell him I'm alive. Tell him I'm ruling in Egypt. Tell him everything. I gave them wagons, donkeys, supplies, everything they would need for the journey. I sent new clothes for each of my brothers, but for Benjamin, I gave 5 changes of clothes and more silver than he could carry. I didn't do it to cause jealousy. I just loved him. He reminded me of home. Before they left, I pulled them close. Don't quarrel on the way, I said. Old habits die hard. As they disappeared down the road, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. News of what happened reached Pharaoh. When he heard that my brothers had come, he was pleased. Let them all come, he said, their children, their animals, everything they own. Egypt will be their home now. I'll give them the best of the land. His kindness still surprised me. I had come to Egypt in chains. Now I was preparing to welcome my entire family as honored guests. I sent word ahead to my father, packed in the mouths of the donkeys and wagons, and on the lips of my brothers. I waited. Every morning I looked toward the road. Every sound of hoofbeats made my heart jump. Every shadow looked like a caravan. Then finally, one evening, the servants came running. They're here. I ran, and there he was. He stepped down slowly from the wagon. His hair was white, his back bent, his eyes searching. And then he saw me. We stood still for a second, just breathing. Then he opened his arms. I ran into them. He held me like he would never let go again. His tears soaked my robe. Mine soaked his. I thought I'd never see you again, he whispered. I'm here, I said. I'm here now. We sat together for hours. He asked questions. I answered what I could. Some things didn't need words. The next day I brought him before Pharaoh. My father stood tall, even in his age, and blessed him. Pharaoh gave us land in Goshen, a place with room for animals, families, and peace. My brothers settled in, their wives, their children, their herds. They laughed again. I heard singing at night. For the first time in a long time, my world felt whole. I looked around the house one evening, my father by the fire, Benjamin playing with the children, my older brothers talking quietly, and I, watching it all. So many years lost, so much pain, but even pain can have a purpose. I didn't understand it before. I only saw the pit, the prison, the silence. But now I saw the bigger picture. God had sent me ahead. not to punish, but to preserve, not to judge, but to save. I leaned back. The stars were out again, just like the ones I used to count as a boy. This time, I didn't ask why. I just breathed in the night and let the peace settle in my heart. Everything had changed, but somehow it felt like coming home.